Betray the fans' trust, destroy the franchise, make a shit film.
Hello, this is the Grumpy Guy. My name is James.
My name's Adie.
We're talking about RoboCop, the 2014 film that's coming up soon. We've just watched the trailer of it, and we're not impressed. We've got a few things we're going to go through. We've got a list of key topics. I'll just go through them, then you'll know what we're going to be talking about. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the synopsis. Second thing we'll be talking about the year, what year it's set in. What we think about the suit, the cast, storyline, what we think the action is going to be like, judging from the trailer. We can only extrapolate certain things from that. The music, what we think that's going to be like as well. The director and who he is. The overall sort of feeling of the film. Talk about the original movie as well. Obviously this is a remake, so that goes without saying, you have to talk about the original. And finally give it a rating out of 10, with 10 being what we think is excellent, and then we'll close off and say see you later. But first of all, we're going to talk about the synopsis. So according to IMDb, the year's 2028 in Detroit, when Alex Murphy, played by Joel Kinnaman, a loving husband, father and good cops, critically injured in the line of duty. Multinational conglomerate Omnicorp sees their chance for a part-man, part-robot police officer. There's also a little bit more that they say about it further down, which is going to be quite key, I think, to our discussion, which is they're at the centre of robot technology, and overseas the drones have been used by the military for years, and it's meant billions of Omnicorp's bottom line. Now they want to bring that controversial technology to the home front. They see that as a golden opportunity to do it. When Alex Murphy, played by Kinnaman, is basically killed in the line of duty, they see their chance for a part-man, part-robot police officer, aka RoboCop. They envision a RoboCop in every city, and even more, billions of dollars for their shareholders. But they didn't count on one thing, apparently. There's still a man inside the machine pursuing justice. Interesting. What are your thoughts, really, on that? I mean, obviously it's a remake of the original, so it's got
I am an extreme RoboCop fan. Always have been. I've even watched the really shitty TV series.
Yeah.
I can even find good bits in shitty TV series. I can even find good bits in RoboCop 3. There are still little bits in there that I think are good. Watching this, so far I am going to shit kittens. I am not happy. It just looks awful. This idea with the remake is slightly different. Although they say Officer Alex Murphy gets killed, no he doesn't. The idea of this one is he gets critically maimed. So what they decide to do is, instead of rebuilding absolutely everything, is they cut his head off and stick it on a robotic body shell, basically. And as much as that sounds, ooh, interesting, I wonder how they're going to handle this, it comes across forced, if you know what I'm saying. It comes across forced, and I hate it. It just doesn't. The idea of the original RoboCop was this: they take away his humanity.
Yeah.
And with this film, they've completely stripped that away by saying, "Don't need to do that. We'll just stick his head on a robot and see how he deals with it." It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. There's no feeling sorry for this character that way. He strives in the first original film to get that back, and by the end of the film, when he turns around, he goes, "Nice shooting, son. What's your name?" And he goes, "Murphy."
Yeah, absolutely.
You have that sense of accomplishment at the end. I can't see this happening with this film.
I like the idea of the original film, and obviously we're jumping to the original already, but we have to talk about it. But I like the original in that when they are building RoboCop, they're able to save his left arm or his right arm. I can't remember which one it was.
It was his left.
Yeah, and the doctor, he goes to one of the surgeons and says, we're able to save that arm, and he goes, lose it. It's basically, get rid of it, we're just going to use his head, we just want his brain effectively, and he has to have a face because otherwise his head would collapse.
And that's another thing, that wasn't actually his face. It wasn't actually covered in the sequel, but originally everything underneath is actually metal, and they didn't just lay his face, basically they just laid his face on top.
Ah, right, yeah.
So it wasn't a skull behind there, it was all robotic, which is why it makes sense when he's got RoboVision without the helmet on, because he can see still in RoboVision. So the idea was that they just laid his face on top, which is why you still got the little bullet mark.
So it's like a an electronic robotic endoskeleton, and they've just basically put something appealing or something that can be identified by another human being over the top, and they just happened to just use his head because it wasn't his face because it wasn't damaged.
That was exactly it, I think.
So the interesting thing about this new film is that he's critically injured, and what I don't understand is he's critically injured. They decide to make a cyborg out of him, basically a human and robot combination, a cyborg. But they decided to keep one of his hands as a human hand.
I can actually answer this.
They've left that as is. You know, is that just so that you can shake hands with people, or something ridiculous like that?
You are absolutely correct. Apparently in this world, the world doesn't like cyborgs very much. They hate them. They don't like robots. They are terrible, blah, blah, blah. They're going to kill the fucking world. This isn't the Terminator, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
With this, what they decided to do was to keep that right hand, so there's a little connection between the robot and the human. So when he does shake hands, just as you eloquently put it, it's quite right. It's so he can shake hands.
You see, the thing is that putting that into context, and we'll talk about the year again in a bit, 2028, because it's far enough in the future to warrant some, willing suspension of disbelief, but it's also close enough for us to make certain judgments about how far our technology is going to advance. But would a company, if you think about a company building a robotic police officer that's going to be tactical, as they say, and is going to basically be going in there and sorting out criminals at the highest level, would they even bother about whether or not people are afraid of robots and cyborgs and stuff? Because his overall look is that of a cyborg. When he puts his visor down, and we'll get onto that again later on, when he puts his visor down, he effectively becomes a cyborg, other than maybe about 12 square inches of face that is like his mouth. To anybody else, he's going to look like a robot. So it kind of doesn't really answer the public outcry over not liking robots. And given that we just saw at the beginning in the trailer with a drone plane sweeping across a cityscape and blowing the shit out of a house, are they really going to care that much about what some little granny on the street thinks about robots?
I don't think so.
Exactly. And Omnicorp's supposed to be an uncaring company. They care about their shareholders. It says in the synopsis that all they're bothered about is money, basically. So they're not really going to give a shit. They're just going to put a robot on the street, a robot in every city, and they're going to reap the benefits of that.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. The reason his visor snaps down, he actually walks around with that up. So you can have that kind of human connection. And the same thing with the hand. And what actually happens, and it's kind of explained in the trailer, is when there's a threat imminent or he spots a crime and stuff like this, the visor snaps down and the robot takes over. In other words, Alex Murphy's along for the ride. He has absolutely no control of what's going on, except what did Gary Oldman say with his character? He says we shoot neurons into certain parts of his brain so he feels like he's in control.
So it's an illusion of free will or something.
That's it, an illusion of free will.
Does the visor automatically snap down automatically, like with some kind of... It recognises a crime, so the visor comes down and he's away. But, presumably he's still a human in there. He's got one human hand. What happens if he's picking his nose and that visor snaps down? Is he going to lose his finger or something because he's scratching his forehead or something, and then all of a sudden the visor comes down? That could be quite painful.
Oh, I'd like to see that. Yeah, so maybe they should put that in the sequel. RoboCop scratches his nose and loses his pinky.
Yeah, that could be quite an interesting sequel, wouldn't it? Robo nose getting sliced off.
I do actually think, in a little sense, though, they should have sent it a little bit further into the future. I mean, if you look at, say,
that's a good segue. I like your segue into the year, because we'll talk about 2028 now. Then, what are your thoughts on?
I think they should have sent it further forward. I mean, it's okay in a sense, but if you think about it, what are we? 2013. We have
Asimo. 15 years into the future.
Absolutely.
From where we are
and
now.
We have Asimo, that Chinese-Japanese robot.
Yeah, the little dancing robot.
The one that looks like when it walks it's taking a shit.
Yeah, Carl Pilkington said it looked like it shat itself.
And it is quite right. And the thing is, I remember reading an interview with Joel Kinnaman. He was talking about taking this role on. He says he got the role and he immediately walked off and started thinking about how he was going to move. So he was practicing all these Peter Weller-style moves.
Right.
And then apparently he came up with the idea, he thought, hold on a minute, we look at robots a lot differently than what we did 20, 30 years ago. and he says they'd be more fluid now and things like this.
Yeah.
But they're not. If you look at Asimov, he still does robotic snap movements.
Yeah, oh
the
yeah.
arms are like this. It's very, very much robotic.
Yeah, I guess it's all down to how many servo motors they put into it. They probably have
So
to
if
put
you-
several thousand in.
I would imagine so. So if you think about it, if they set it a lot further forward, like 2050, take it a lot further forward. Let's imagine Asimov in about 30 years' time. It's more than likely he's going to be walking around normally like we are. It's more than likely the movements will become a lot more fluidity to his movements.
Yeah,
But-
I'm sure there probably will be more fluidity to Asimov if they decide. But then again, I mean, Asimov was hailed as being this robot that could do loads of different things, like it can walk upstairs and it can run and
All it does is dance on stage.
But
I mean,
exactly, what have they done with it?
Exactly. All it does is
since
dance
was
on
developed.
stage. That makes me think that it could go a little bit deeper. Maybe they've just got this technology and they're showing you little bits and a side little a segue somewhere. They have Asimovs that are a lot bigger. They probably move a lot faster, and they probably are a bit more built in the nightmarish 2027 Terminator type thing. Who knows? That's us going a bit off topic. But with RoboCop,
Yeah, I mean, Terminator was. I mean, that talked, like jumping onto Terminator, that talked about a nuclear war or something in about 1999, didn't it? Or
it was
something?
1997 Judgment
Right,
Day hit, where Skynet decided to take over because, who knows, it became self-aware, didn't like what it saw.
Yeah. And then it went on to start building its own machines and hunter killers and all that sort of stuff. And that's not happened. And that's 1997, which is now, what, 16 years ago, which is effectively the same, pretty much the same distance in time between now and when Judgment Day was supposed to have happened with this machine becoming self-aware,
Exactly.
and now and 2028 when this film is being set. And hardly anything's changed between
Exactly that. So
2013.
you could also go to Back to the Future too.
Yeah, with the hoverboards.
In
and
2
stuff.
years' time, we apparently have floating cars, we have hoverboards, we have 3D images that just appear out of nowhere.
Yeah,
the giant
yeah.
Jaws joke that they made.
Yeah.
If you're going to set something in the future, drop it into the future. Don't drop it 20, 30 years in the future.
No.
Drop it mainly into the future. At least that way you can set, what's the word I'm looking for? You can give a little bit of disbelief and say, yeah, okay, they can do that at this time.
Yeah, you can kind of get away with it if you set something way off into the future. I mean, films like Metropolis that were like made in like 1923 or whatever it was, you know, they could set something into the future and set it in, you know, the year 2000, and to them that was like a long, long way into the future. Whereas, you know, that would be the same as us doing something like setting it in 2150 something. You know, it's another 100 years or so, and you can get away with that. But when it's like 15 years, you know that in 15 years' time people are going to look back at this film and laugh in the same way that we look back at things like Escape from New York.
Absolutely.
And laugh and see that New York didn't get turned into a biggest open-air maximum security prison. None of that happened.
What an idea.
Yes,
John
we-
Carpenter's a genius. I would have loved that.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But these things haven't happened, so I think it's probably likely that in 2028 the technology that they're alluding to, although we've got drones and stuff, I don't think we're going to be anywhere near being able to map computer technology with people's neural synapses and stuff and control a human body through electronics. So you can do it on a muscular level, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it on a moral level or put directives
No,
into
I don't think
somebody's
that would happen.
brain.
I mean,
Not in 15 years' time.
I don't think it would happen full stop. There's too much of the Human Rights Act. You know, I mean, there's who the hell wants to become a machine? In
Yeah.
fact, he says that in RoboCop 2. He turns around and he goes, "Sir, I've never met anyone who wanted to be a robot."
Yeah.
And that's quite true. So there are little issues. Admittingly, you have to skirt over a little bit. It's a bit of disbelief. It's a film. But when it looks as shit as that,
It just looks really, really shit. I think something else that got me, I made some notes, as I've mentioned before, is that it's like they see a RoboCop in every city, and effectively what it sounds like is they're either going to wait until more police officers are critically injured in the same way that, you know, Alex Murphy is in this version of the film,
but didn't
or
they? Because I haven't thought about that. We'll get
or
to
they're
it.
going to make more and maybe more, well, like Terminator style police officers or whatever.
Which they appear to have because of Robo fighting them.
Yeah, but if they've already got that, why have they bothered with Alex Murphy, because if they see him, unless he's obviously, I guess he's the prototype for the next thing, and maybe they're going to start looking at genetically cloning people and making them into RoboCops or whatever.
Maybe they're going to genetically do Alex Murphy.
Yeah, maybe they're like in Oblivion. You know,
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
they're all Alex Murphys, and maybe he's going to realise that. Who knows? But it's just like they said that they didn't count on one thing, that the man was still in there fighting justice. Don't use a man then. It's like saying we put a mouse inside a box and called it a tank, but we didn't count on the fact that the mouse was still in the box. Don't put it in there then.
That's where they fucked up. They completely fucked up, because in the first one, the originals, well, no, we keep going back to it, but let's face it.
Yeah,
it's a
we have to go
in
back
the
to it.
original, they basically said it doesn't matter, we're going to blank his mind anyway.
Yeah,
the idea
yeah.
of doing that was so they could actually take control of what was going on.
Yeah.
In this new film, it doesn't look like they've addressed that at all.
No.
It's like they've just gone, we cut his head off, stuck it on a sideboard, off you go. Got to
Yeah.
take over and do this.
We just put a little chip in there that controls his brain to tell him what to do. On you go, so it's fine.
But it doesn't work.
No.
You can't feel sorry for a character like that. The thing about RoboCop, and I know I said it earlier, is you felt sorry for him. That's Paul Verhoeven said when the reason Murphy's death is so horrific is because you spend such a short time with him that he needed to do something to make you feel sorry for the character.
Yeah.
And that's why he shot his arm off, you know, he pretty much blew his body.
Well, it's like a kind of a Jesus kind of situation. He's tortured. He goes through hell before he eventually gets killed.
And that's exactly what Verhoeven said it was. He even makes a reference to it later when he's walking across the water. I'm not a rescuer anymore.
Yeah.
And he's walking on water.
Yeah.
That's a reference as a Jesus resurrection-y type thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely very much so.
Because they haven't done that this time, not certainly from the trailer, from what we can tell, it's completely taken away any sense of, I feel really sorry for Alex Murphy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not going to feel sorry for this Alex Murphy. And it just doesn't work. The fact they blew him up in a car bomb.
Yeah. This bizarre.
I'm starting to have an idea of what they're probably trying to go to. That's just a theory, but it doesn't work either.
No.
It's a car bomb. He survives. Did Omnicorp have something to do with that? It's certainly possible, isn't it? Maybe.
Well, why would they even bother? I mean, why not just shoot him? Do you know what I mean?
That's the thing. Well, they can't just shoot him. That's the point. They need that.
Yeah.
You know, the top of his head.
But blowing, you know, if they need his head to control the robot, then blowing him up next, you know, in a car using a car bomb is not a particularly good targeting system for making sure the head isn't damaged.
That's the thing. And
You know,
you actually see it in the trailer that his face looks like it's completely burnt.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like
And he's got eyebrows in the next shot. When you see him in the robot, I don't think he'd have eyebrows ever again after that. So
I mean,
why?
it said some. I don't know what the percentage was, but it sounded like a great deal of his 80% burns. Like, and thankfully he was wearing a flame retardant balaclava when the bomb went off. And it's protected his head in its entirety. That was a stroke of luck, wasn't it? No, it's clearly a load of balls, that bit. And also another thing about you know he talks about there's a bit with Gary Oldman's character that's saying in the trailer that it gives the illusion of free will. Well, clearly that fails within the first few minutes of him getting off the surgeon's chair, because what the hell did you do to me?
And he strangles him.
Why didn't they shut him down at that point and say, right, back to the drawing board, there's something wrong? But they didn't. They thought, right, let's just give him a black suit and that'll be all right, that'll sort it out. I think mentioning the black suit as well leads us on nicely
Good segue, sir.
to the suit. It's quite nice, that, wasn't it? I wrote some bullet points down. I'll go through them and then you go through your bullet points. But my bullet points are, number one, bad design. Very 1980s. I mean, there was a lot of good stuff in the 1980s, don't get me wrong. I grew up in the 1980s. But when you look at the style of it, it reminded me of a bit of Power Rangers. There was Street Hawk in there. The red slit across the eyes.
Oh.
Black and red is a very 80s colour combination. It reminded me of Knight Rider. I don't know if you've ever seen a film with Charlie Sheen in it called The Wraith. That is very much, his outfit is very much like that. And then you've got other things that it's an amalgamation of, not necessarily 1980s, but you've got an element of Tron legacy when you're looking at
The suit.
when you look at the suit, and you look at I think his name is Rinsler in Tron Legacy, but actually turns out to be Tron himself. He's just been given a different name. That outfit, there's an element of Daft Punk if you look at his outfit there. There's a bit of Iron Man in there. There's some Batman. There's some Venom, Spider-Man, Venom.
They're very much
like Venom. You know, if you look at all of those elements, they've effectively put them all together to try and find this kind of combination of what makes a typical 21st century superhero. And I think it's probably been done, this is my cynical view, but I think it's probably been done with a view for merchandising as opposed to anything else. To, you know,
well, they are going for what the Americans call a PG-13. So
yeah, exactly.
If they're going to do that, I mean, I can't see it selling, to be totally honest with you. I mean,
No.
he's not exactly Iron Man, and I can see lots of elements of
Oh,
Iron
there's
Man in
a ton
there.
of Iron Man with the visor.
Absolutely. Actually, the whole suit itself. It's
Yeah.
more than likely that Iron Man is the reason this film's getting made now, because
Yeah.
it's popular.
Yes, oh yeah, definitely. And I just think it was, I mean, going back to merchandising and stuff, one of my notes that I made was that I think it was designed with a shampoo dispenser in mind, more than anything else. Don't you think? It has,
I haven't thought that until
you know,
now.
when you take his visor off and you can squirt out the shampoo from his
Absolutely.
head or whatever, it just looks like that. And it's just other toys and stuff, you know, it looks like a novelty vibrator. I think that the original was much better, and I think if you look at the inspiration from we're looking at suit comparisons. If you look at the suit comparison between this one and the original RoboCop suit, I mean, RoboCop suit from 1987,
Which still
had-
holds up. In my
exactly,
opinion.
definitely.
That suit still holds up. If they'd done that suit but just updated it,
Yeah.
and they do sort of do that. If you
Yeah,
look at
it
the
looked
trailer,
really good,
and
that-
that suit worked.
Yeah.
The two-tone with the silver,
It looked
and it
really
looked like
good.
RoboCop. That
Yeah.
to me was RoboCop.
I think maybe the makers of this film thought that it looked too. They probably thought that they would do that as a nod towards the original, which is
I
what
think
a lot
they
of
fucked
remakes.
up then. And in
remakes
all
do.
honesty, we all know. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be people listening to this and you're thinking, "What are you talking about? I like the black. It looks great. I love the red and all that sort of shit." But let's face it. If you're sitting there listening to this, compared to that original suit, I might as well have wiped my arse on it.
Yeah.
Because it looks shit.
Yeah,
And
it
it does look shit. And I'll admit there are elements in that suit I do like. I do like the idea of a snap-down visor. I think that's a good idea. It's very updated, but if you just kept the original look of RoboCop and did that, I could see that working.
Yeah, that would be better. But I don't like the automatic snap-down visor
I think-
for all the extremity chopping off.
I think it's
related to
obviously they
shoes.
did that so they didn't have to keep taking a helmet off and putting it
Yeah.
back on, blah, blah, blah.
But I think, and we're kind of going off subject a little bit. We are still talking about the suit, but the fact that his visor comes up and goes down, I'm not so sure that gives you any steer in terms of whether you should care about that character or not,
And
because
that's
he's
the
still
point.
Alex Murphy.
He
isn't
is still
he?
Alex Murphy, and the point is, he is Alex Murphy throughout the film. He's
Yeah.
got nothing to gain back. I mean, he's not going to lose his family. If you look at that, his wife
Yeah,
is
his
very
wife's
much.
still there. You need
I-
to talk. I mean, you need to talk to your son. Hang on a minute. I mean, it's like in The Office where Ricky Gervais's character of David Brent is talking about a scenario where Lenny Henry is just trying to leave the house to go off to Africa as part of Children in Need, and Dawn French is shouting after him, going, "Where are you going? You haven't done the washing up." And he goes, "Do it yourself! I'm trying to save some Africans." And it's almost that. It's kind of like, yeah, I know you're a superhero, but come back because you need to talk to your son. Bollocks! Bollocks! He's a RoboCop. He's not going to care about the washing up. He's not going to be cared about checking on his kids' homework. He's not bothered about if his kid's got the shits. He's not going to be bothered about walking around Tesco's
That's
with
the
a
fucking
trolley.
point. I mean, did they really think that they were going to snap this into? You're going to put his head on a robot, and he was suddenly going to go home at night.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, darling. I've
Yeah.
had a terrible night.
Yeah.
I had to kill 4 drug dealers. He's not going to do
And,
that, is
and
he?
by the way, if you want a little brother or sister for our son, you can forget it because I haven't got a robo knob.
Oh, by the way, we're at it. That's exactly where my connector is when I need a charge.
Or when I see something like that, automatically snaps up. Like
Absolutely, you see, it's got red on the end.
Yeah,
Either way,
clothes. Yeah.
either way, it doesn't work.
No, it's
You-
ridiculous.
the
It's
idea-
absolutely bollocks.
They should have taken that same route as the first one. You
Definitely.
take his humanity away from him.
Yeah,
And then-
and it's everything to regain it.
Absolutely.
And the ultimate sort of the unwritten rule, not rule, the unwritten sort of message to that is that what does it actually mean? It asks those questions like every other, popular film does. What does it actually mean to be human? Why is it important to maintain your humanity? Why is it important to regain it at any cost? To maintain your freedom, free will, freedom of speech, self-control, control over your own body and your own destiny, and how you die. All of those things are fundamental elements to human life. And RoboCop, the original film, asked and sort of answered all of those questions.
They did.
Whereas this film, we haven't seen it, we don't know what it's going to be about, but we know that it ain't going to answer those questions.
Absolutely not, and it shows straight away. I mean, the original film, we keep going back to it, the original film did that brilliantly.
Yeah.
They took that humanity away, and through little parts in that film, like he visits his home, he has little memories.
And he's got that burned photo. Didn't he find a photo?
He's in the picture, and he can see, he recognises it, but he doesn't understand why he
that Halloween party.
Yeah, he sees that bit with TJ Laser with his son watching it. Can you do that there?
Yeah.
And all those little bits. Those little bits were him.
And that bit where he keeps remembering his wife saying, "I really have to tell you something," and it's only later on that she finishes off that sentence and says, "I love you," and then they go into the bedroom and stuff, and it's kind of like, you don't see the rest of it because you don't need to, but you get the impression that he's remembering what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be a human.
And it delivers it beautifully.
Yeah.
I can't see
and he
that
even said, "I can feel them, but I don't remember them."
It's my favourite line from the film.
I don't reckon they're going to have anything like that.
I don't think I'll have a moment like that whatsoever.
Because he doesn't have to even worry about forgetting them. He goes home to them. They're alive. He knows they're alive. In the original film, they disappear. They thought he died. They moved on, which is what would happen in the real world. He got killed, or they were told, killed in the line of duty, dead, gone. They moved on. They wanted to get out of the city, take themselves away from all the things that would remind them of her husband and his father, and try and make a life elsewhere.
Absolutely.
And so many people do that.
And
this isn't going to happen.
I don't think it is at all.
He could see his wife while he's out on work, and she can wave to him. What a load of balls.
And I love the bit where, in the original film, they address it in a way where you can see like the little stamps of when he's starting to regain who he is.
Yeah.
He actually gets to a point where he looks at Lewis, he's just taken the helmet off, and he goes, "Murphy had a wife and son. What happened to them?" He doesn't consider himself Murphy at that point.
No, he's just thinking that he's got a kind of the man inside his head.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? He can see
and it's
flashbacks.
fantastic. Then you jump back to the end, and he goes, "What's your name, son?" And he goes, "Murphy."
Yeah.
At that point, he's regained
he's
back
back.
humanity.
Yeah.
And none of that is being portrayed in anything I can see in that trailer for the new film.
What?
And to me, that is going to be the biggest fucking downfall.
Yeah.
Is that you have no connection to that character, you have no feelings towards that character, because let's face it, you felt sorry for Peter Weller's RoboCop.
Yeah, well, I kind of think that the impression that you get from Alex Murphy or from RoboCop in the original film is that he takes baby steps. He's effectively been reborn as a robot, and he takes baby steps towards regaining the man that he used to be. He even sort of alludes to that in the sense that the food that he eats is baby food. He is a baby, and he's trying to find his way in the world and what it means to be a robot and to remember this man that used to be. And you go along that journey with him. In this film, it looks like he hasn't lost his humanity, he's still got it. He hasn't lost his family, he still has them. He's only got things to gain because he's been given all of these. They've got tactical weapons. He's got a cool suit. He's got a bike, which we'll get onto. He's obviously got additional strength. He's got all these different. He's effectively a superhero. He's like Iron Man. He's a human inside the suit.
Yeah, it's like a full version of the $6 Million Man.
Exactly. And this guy is like he's been given everything on a plate. And yeah, they say about we're going back to this illusion of free will again. But he's got free will. We know he has. We've seen it. So effectively, there's nothing to feel sorry for him about.
There's nothing there, and that's the bit that's going to ruin it for me.
So, the only thing that I can think of really then is the message of this film is about a robot that breaks its programming. Because there'll be a little bit of programming in there that he's going to break.
They've turned RoboCop into fucking Crichton.
Exactly, and he's going to turn on them because they were going to use him as some kind of tactical weapon against people. In the same way, similar to the original film, he was used as a weapon against people, but he was still doing good, and he was still a good crime fighter. But he had that hidden directive where he couldn't apprehend a senior executive of Omni Consumer Products.
My program will not allow me to act against an officer of this
Exactly, that's why he fires him and he can shoot him. But it's like, it's the classic tale of, he's a pawn, P-A-W-N, for those people who get offended by pornography. But
You're listening to the wrong show.
Yeah, he's a pawn. He's used as tactical. Michael Keaton even says make him tactical. So he's going in there. He's being used, and eventually, as part of this film, he's going to turn against the people who use him and rebel, and he's going to get his life back. But he's already got that. So I don't really understand, other than that there may be quite a lot of action in it and CGI and good special effects.
I've got to say, the good special effects do actually look good.
Yeah, but I think that's all this film is going to be. You're just going to be. It's going to be, and a lot of American films like this, Hollywood films these days, sadly are
cheap.
They're roller coasters.
Yeah,
you go
cheap
along for the ride. You sit in your seat, you get your popcorn, and you observe. Whereas films from the past, especially the original film, they're immersive. You put yourself in the situation of that character, you care about that character, and you go along with them rather than just going along for the ride, this roller coaster. And I think, unfortunately, this film is going to be another roller coaster.
It might be. I mean, they do kind of hint at there's certain things he's going to do. I mean, there's a part in it where she says you need to go and speak to your son, and then in one of the shots, in a quick shot of the trailer, he's on his knee and he's got his son in front of him.
Yeah.
So they are going to try and address it. Whether they actually deliver is another thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I think you see his son touching his hand, and obviously maybe his son's touching his robotic hand, and then he'll touch his human hand. But the thing is that what I really find annoying, because I get annoyed a lot by these sorts of things now, is the fact that his son is in it. And the one thing that makes me feel like vomiting when I see children in films like this is the way that I felt when I saw Superman Returns, when you had this super child. He turned out to be Clark Kent's baby.
Superman Returns is a future episode. I fucking despise parts of that film.
Exactly.
That film.
I mean, they put him in hospital, for Christ's sake. But we're digressing. But what I was trying to get to is the fact that there's a child in this film who has a relationship with this child, and he's the superhero, and he's got a young son, and then at the end of the film, you just know that there's going to be a nod towards his son, kind of like following in his father's footsteps.
Superboy.
Yeah, or Robo Kid. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be that sort of. It will be that sort of shite. That's what I think.
I think you might be spot on, to be honest.
Yeah, Robo Kid. I want to be just like you, Dad. Do you really? Do you know what it means to be a robot son? It's going to be all of that sort of shit.
Oh, if he does do that, I can't even fuck your mother. Why do I want to be a fucking robot? I can't even fuck your mother. Yeah. I can have an attachment, apparently. It's an accessory.
Yeah.
$19.99 at the Omnicorp store, where they'll attach it to the front of my groin, and it will vibrate.
And I've got to recharge it before I can use it, and stuff like that. Yes. Oh, it's rubbish. But getting back to what we were talking about, the suit. When we talk about the original suit design, because I noted a few things that I thought the original suit was like, and we've talked about Metropolis before.
Oh, it was definitely very, very much.
If you've seen Hell from Metropolis, the female
absolutely,
robot,
it was very much modelled on that.
And again, C-3PO from Star Wars was modelled on the Metropolis
early
robot.
Actual dictation, the concepts of that robo suit, and there are pictures online, so use Google, people. You will see that the helmet originally looked more like something from Judge Dredd.
Okay.
That was what the helmet originally looked like, and obviously Rob Bottin, the absolute master who created that costume,
fantastic,
went off, redid it, and delivered what you saw, but not exactly, because Peter Weller, I just did an interview recently. He was with Ain't It Cool News. You can watch that on YouTube as well, and he describes the original suit that shows up. He couldn't move in it. Absolutely not. So the suit that you see does not reflect what they originally wanted you to see.
Okay.
All these little cutout bits, the
in his midriff,
all that was done after they started shooting.
What, to give that flexibility?
Yeah, because he didn't have it. Originally,
down.
RoboCop didn't have these snappy movements. You know, he turns his head and it snaps.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's
Me too.
just what makes him believe that he's not a man in a suit.
I like the bit when he's walking through that. It looks like he's walking through like a data center where he's going to access those.
And his body turns before his head slips.
He turns his shoulders and he turns his head afterwards.
Oh, it's fantastic. Now, originally, it wasn't going to work like that. The movements of RoboCop was going to be very fluid, so there wasn't going to be this snap. It was going to be very like a snake, as he puts it.
More fluid.
And it was actually thanks to that suit completely fucking up when they got it sent to them. Why we had Peter Weller doing those beautiful movements.
Yeah.
Absolutely
and
beautiful.
He put in quite a lot of studying into robotic movement.
He did.
Peter Weller,
he did indeed. I can't remember the name of his mime who actually got him through it. Hakim or something like that. I can't remember. You have to forgive me, viewers. But because of that, and I believe it was in their fortune, because once that didn't work and he started doing these snappy robotic movements, you stopped looking at him as a man in a suit to becoming, that's a fucking robot.
Yes.
And that's what made it work.
Definitely.
Now, talking about the new suit, he obviously has a element of fluidity that Peter Weller didn't have, because let's face it, it's a rubber fucking suit. You might as well just call him Batman and let him get on with it. But those movements don't appear to be there. And to me, it stops being RoboCop and Robo in a shit suit.
Exactly. One of the notes I've got is that the name RoboCop alludes to robot/robotics. Yet he just moves like an ordinary guy in a chunky combat suit. So
and that's what makes it
he's
shit.
not a robot.
As soon as you do that, you take any element away of him feeling he's a robot or a cyborg. You stop thinking of him like that.
They should have renamed the film and called him Cybercop.
Why not? I mean, that's not RoboCop to me. Just because you give him a helmet that makes him look slightly like RoboCop doesn't make him fucking RoboCop.
Or they've just basically stolen the storyline, nicked the character names, and called it RoboCop.
Pretty much. And they don't even mention in the trailer, I mean, I'm sure they do in the film, it's never even called RoboCop. You never even say, this is RoboCop. You know...
oh, really? So, like it... Oh, yeah, in the trailer it doesn't mention that. It just talks about, like, a tactical
Exactly.
cop.
So it's never even mentioned as RoboCop.
Yeah, but RoboCop's, you know, his name's mentioned quite a lot in the original film.
Absolutely. And that's a good
Bob
point.
Morton, there's a new guy in town, his name's RoboCop. I mean, what a fantastic thing to have.
What a great way of introducing
that. Like a Western film, isn't it? There's a new guy in town.
I mean, obviously we're extrapolating from the trailer that we've seen here. We could be well off. I
don't think we are. I think
I think we might be.
I think we're spot on. And I think the wanker that made this film, who thinks he's going to blow us all away in 2014, is going to potentially listen to our review of this film.
Oh God!
And he's going to shit himself and realise that we've sussed him before he's... We've forgotten more than he's fucking learned.
Jose, I love your Elite Squad films. I think they're brilliantly shot. I just don't like this version of RoboCop. I think you've taken too much away from what made the character great in the first place. You've taken the basic elements and then got rid of them. And then just said, we'll call it RoboCop and have a snap-down visor, and he says, dead or alive, you're coming with me. Which, by the way, sounds shit when he does it, Joel. And I hope you listen to this too. You should have deepened your voice and at least sound like you meant it. When Peter Weller steps out of that police car, he sees a meal, he pulls out and he goes, drop it! And the guy looks at him and he goes, dead or alive, you're coming with me. It was fucking magic.
Yeah.
You genuinely believe right there, you are fucked. Seeing your little shot at the end, I'm sure it's not in context, so forgive me ahead of time. But the fact that you see him just go, they're alive, you're coming with me. What? Was somebody squeezing your balls?
Yeah.
What the fuck was that?
Yeah.
If that would be the most... If you talk about RoboCop to any person, they say, what's the first line from RoboCop that people will remember? Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Or stay out of trouble.
Precisely. Those are the lines that you have to fucking nail. And if you don't nail those, you just come across as some shit rip-off. And that's exactly what it is.
Or the classic lines, Dick Jones is wanted for murder.
Oh, I love that. I love it. Just the way he continually stares at Dick Jones. His eyes never come off him.
Yeah.
Even when the body moves in one direction, that head is locked. Basically, Dick, you're fucked. And
Yeah.
You know, and that is the brilliance of that line. And even when he it is. And he even delivers the next line where he goes, my program will not allow me to act against an officer of this company.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, these are some serious charges, son. What's your evidence? And he does that little, even when his body spins around.
He keeps looking at him.
He's still looking at him before he moves off.
Yeah.
And then sticks in and then turns back straight
away. That's when he's got the spike again. He puts
the data spike. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then he spins around and he's staring back at Dick.
Yeah, while he's playing that, I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake.
And it's repeated.
Now it's time to erase that mistake. But it's kind of like, what I love about that as well is that, yeah, it's repeating it over and over again as his admission, but it's also repeating something that is ultimately Alex Murphy's duty. It's his ultimate objective, which is to erase that mistake. And that's what Alex Murphy has done. He's erased RoboCop. That was the Alex Murphy erases RoboCop,
absolutely.
not Dick
and I'm
Jones
sure
or
Ed
anybody
Moore,
else.
if you listen to this, pal, I'm a big fan. You are shaking your head in yes and saying that is exactly what we were meaning by that scene.
Yeah, absolutely awesome film. And I think you made a nice segue when you talked about Joel Kinnaman, because we're going to talk about the cast now. And who the fuck is Joel Kinnaman?
Now, I've seen him in a few things. He did star in a series called The Killing, and he did get some really good reviews. I'm not saying he's a bad actor. I don't think he is. I think he's generally a good actor. But with most actors, you can only deliver with the script source you are given. Obviously, the director must have pushed him in certain directions, how he wanted this played.
He comes across, though, looking at his not his discography, his filmography. He has done an awful lot of TV series. He comes across as a TV actor.
I think so. He's a bit of a bit part actor.
Yeah.
I mean, he appears in Safe House with the fantastically brilliant Denzel Washington. It's only a small part, but and he does deliver. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't think this is going to be your big leap, Joel. I'm sorry.
He's to me looking at him, and I've got a big bugbear about this sort of thing anyway. He's too young.
He looks like a kid.
He looks like he's 20. He looks like a boy next door. Alex Murphy, Peter Weller. He'd done loads of films before, like Buckaroo Banzai.
Oh,
he's a lot more of a seasoned actor. He was an older guy, probably early 30s, maybe when he did RoboCop.
I think he was.
And he's a seasoned cop, and you believe that about Alex Murphy. Whereas in this film, it's kind of like
cheapened.
Yeah, he's a young he's a young sort of probie. He's maybe just come out of probation. He seems to be only very, very early on in his career.
Yeah, but he's a detective. Which makes you think that he must have been doing it for years.
But and another thing is that he's a detective, whereas Alex Murphy in the original film wasn't. He was just a cop. He was one of the guys. And I think over in the UK, if you're American or elsewhere, and you have this understanding about cops and detectives and stuff. Over here, detectives and criminal investigation departments, or CID, are very much different to your average on-the-street bobby or street cop. And there's that dividing line. They always see them as slightly aloof, slightly more secretive, not really sharing information. They use the uniformed officers a lot more. It's a one-way street, effectively. And I suspect that's probably a similar thing in America as well, although most people are detectives in America, that at least you see on television anyway. But I just feel that they've dropped a bollock with that. They should have made him one of the guys. Because in the original film, something that I love about that film, he says, we're police officers and police officers don't strike. That's one of the police guys at the beginning.
Absolutely.
And then he walked in. One of those guys walks in and slams the door of his locker and says, Omni Consumer Products, what a bunch of morons. They're going to run this department right into the ground. And it's like, you get that instant impression that that Omni Consumer Products are the bad guys.
They do certainly hint at it, right? And you certainly
the cops are the union guys. They're the workers. They're like the factory workers. They're and a similarity with Metropolis here is that they are the people that keep the cogs turning. They are the ones that are the feet of the swan underneath. The swan's on the top, calm and graceful. Underneath there's this engine underneath it, and you get the impression that the police are these downtrodden workers
and they're fighting
that won't revolt.
Battle.
They won't revolt. They're bound by their duty and their code of conduct and their honour. I'm not so sure that we'll actually see that kind of attitude reflected in this film. You kind of get the impression that there's only going to be Alex Murphy on the street and the rest of them are going to be robotic police officers that OCP or Omnicorp, because they've changed the name of the company, maybe for legal reasons. Perhaps there's been another company spring up called Omni Consumer Products since 1987.
Ed Newmeyer went, fuck off, you're not using my name.
Possibly.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Michael Miner, Ed Newmeyer could have been. I really hope they're watching at least this trailer and thinking, oh my god,
Yeah.
isn't my film brilliant compared to yours?
I mean, this will. If anything, what I'm hoping for is that people will watch this shit 2014 film, and then will realise that there is an original, and then go and watch that original and realise that the original is the best. You know?
I mean, I will watch this film. I know I will. Even though I don't like the trailer. I
Yeah.
don't like elements of it. I will watch it and I will make a decisive thought on it then, because, like we said, we're shooting from the hip from a trailer.
Yeah.
Admittingly, it's shit. But we may watch the film and think it wasn't as bad as I thought. I fucking doubt it, by the way. But we may think it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Well, then we'll come back on here and we'll do another one. And
well, maybe we'll come back and do a second part. You
Yeah.
know, in February 2014, if we're still around, which I'm sure we will be. There's
Hopefully,
plenty
yeah.
of fucking movies to moan about. Believe me.
what would be good as well is if we do come back and we do another one after we've watched the film, if we can go back to all the points that we've discussed tonight, and then we can actually tick or cross against ones and then see how close we were to what the
Absolutely.
film is going to actually turn out like.
What I am interested to hear is that when you guys listen to this, there are comment boxes underneath this. I would love to see your reactions. Do you agree with us? Do you think we're both a bunch of fucking idiots? I don't care. I want to hear what you've got to say so we can respond. Viewers' discretion, I will not hold back. If I think you're talking out of your arse, I will fight back. And I'm pretty sure James will fight back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think we'll put comments on approval so that we can see the comments before we approve them and put them on there. We'll just have because we can filter out the trolls then, can't we?
Oh, fucking trolls! I hate trolls.
Definitely.
Actually,
But, I mean, going back
thinking about it, they might think we're trolls for doing this.
No, because we're just putting our opinion. I mean, we're following the basic ethics of YouTube, which is we're broadcasting ourselves. So you can't actually have a go at us for broadcasting ourselves because even fucking YouTube says to do it. So that's what we're doing. But getting back to the cast. Talked about Joel Kinnaman, bit part TV person. We'll probably see him on EastEnders or Coronation Street after this. But I mean, we've got Samuel L. Jackson, which is again safe pair of hands, but you know
He has starred in shit too.
yeah,
That's the point.
I just get the impression now that he's like an actor for hire, and he'll just want to do anything.
He generally likes to jump into most things.
Yeah.
I would think the same about Gary Oldman, but
Yeah, well, yeah, me too. Yeah, I agree with you.
but I love Gary Oldman.
Yeah, me too.
So he is actually one of the main reasons I probably watch the film, just to see what he delivers, because every role that guy does is completely different.
I am surprised though that Gary Oldman has done this, because knowing the kind of actor that he is, the high caliber actor that he is, there's always a danger that you get typecast. And Gary Oldman has just walked away from three of the best Batman films you could ever possibly hope to watch, and he's doing this, which is again very, very similar, working alongside a superhero in inverted commas in a black suit. I just kind of get the impression that maybe the money was too good to turn down for Gary Oldman as opposed to anything else.
Possible, or he saw something in the script that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, maybe so.
Obviously the trailer is just a mixture of quick shots just to see what your interest in the film will be. Maybe the film will be a lot better than we think. I highly doubt it, but we will see. And maybe that's what Gary Oldman has seen in the script.
Yeah.
But I also know that the script for this film leaked online. And I also know that the people that reviewed this film, or this film script, if you forgive me, said it sounded like a pile of shit.
Well, it's nice actually to be proven right before we've even seen this film, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because we haven't read the script, but we know this film is going to be shit, and we're not mediums, so we know this film is going to be shit, and we've not even seen it or read the script, and we can tell it's going to be shit from just 2 minutes 20 seconds of
Absolutely.
bollocks on
I mean, nothing in
trailer.
that trailer dragged me in to want to watch this film.
No.
Nothing whatsoever.
It just gave me a sense of dread, to be honest, when I watched it. I just thought, oh, you bastards, you fucked up RoboCop now. What's next?
Absolutely.
What's next? I mean,
I think that's the biggest problem. I mean, if you've got such an original, perfect film, and it is perfect. I even like the second one. It's got its faults, but I think it's still a damn good film.
Kane, let's step
Oh,
outside.
God, Peter Weller. How I love it.
Classic.
But the thing is, RoboCop did go on a decline.
Yeah, RoboCop 3, we won't talk about that.
No,
Although there are still some redeeming facts in
like I
RoboCop
said,
3.
I love the little conversation he has with that little girl.
Right. I hate that little girl.
I hate the girl, but I love the conversation he says. She's talking about losing her parents and all this sort of stuff. And he goes, your parents, you missed them, but we remember them. And if we remember them, they're never really gone.
Yeah.
And I thought that was beautifully done.
Yeah.
You know,
Because that goes back to the original film, doesn't
yeah,
it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I thought Robert John Burke did a fantastic job with that little bit. But it's still got shit moments in it.
Yeah.
Namely the rest
Yeah,
of the film.
he wasn't good. He looked weird with his helmet off as well. 'Cause
Yeah,
they did this prosthetic thing to make it look like Peter Weller.
Why was he constantly puffing his fucking lips out as
I
well?
don't know. It's quite
You know, that fucking Helen Flanagan duck face bollocks. It's like constantly like that. What's that?
I think he actually was doing the Peter Weller RoboCop pout, and there is one in the original film, but I think that in RoboCop 3 that guy was trying too hard to emulate that, and it came across as over the top.
I think you might be right. They also fucked him by changing his voice too much.
Yeah.
Did you actually notice that when he had his helmet off, he sounded pretty good?
Yeah.
Nice, deep. And then as soon as it came on, it was just, "Good evening, Sergeant Reed."
Yeah.
And it was shit. It just completely took you away from the character of Murphy, and I fucking hate that.
Yeah, it is gay to the extreme. John Inman would have done a better job. But I think getting back to the cast, Michael Keaton, you know,
I love Michael Keaton.
icon from the original 1989 Batman film.
87's
Tim Burton.
Beetlejuice.
Exactly, great actor.
Mr. Mom, of all people, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's done so many things, but I kind of get the impression that the guy's trying to, and I can't blame him for this, but I think he's trying to kind of jumpstart his career again after some kind of hiatus, maybe. He's
Possibly.
a bit of a
I
gap.
mean, I love
Did
Michael
White
Keaton.
Noise, he was good in White Noise.
He was good in White
Yeah.
Noise. I mean, I love Michael Keaton. I have no bad words to say against him.
No,
I
no,
really
he's a great
can't.
guy.
I think he's absolutely brilliant. But I kind of agree. I think he's trying to get back into a big film to kind of give him a bit of shock, so people say, Michael Keaton's back.
Yeah.
Even though he probably never really left.
I think as well the role that he's doing in this film is very much he's part. It sounds like he's very much going to be part of the establishment as opposed to the hero.
Oh, I think you might be right.
or the.
Do you ever get the impression that he's trying to come across a bit like... Because he comes across with charisma, just in those little bits that you see him in.
I think he's trying to do a Bob Morton impression from the original film.
Maybe
or-
not from the original film, but he's definitely trying to update. He's probably this hip guy around town. He probably had money from the age of 20 or something like that, made all this money with on these consumer products.
So you think it might be a bit of the old Stark?
I do.
Tony
I do
Stark.
think it'll be a bit like the bit of Stark. I don't think he will ever match that charisma.
Oh
But
no!
let's
God.
face it, Robert Downey
Jr. was made for that part.
He is. I've loved Downey Jr. for years. I remember watching him in Chaplin.
Oh, that's the best film he's ever
He's
done in my
fucking
opinion.
brilliant in it. And I remember watching him in that and saying, that guy is
Absolutely fantastic.
He's a fucking genius.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I know you're all nodding your heads along with this, he is a fucking genius.
Yeah.
And obviously we're talking about Iron Man and we should be talking about RoboCop, but there's so many similarities.
Oh, huge similarities.
Because
And I
of the costume.
And I think the makers of this film know, mate. I think they know the
Oh,
similarities.
yeah.
They're
I
cashing,
said it
like you
earlier.
said at the beginning, you know, they're cashing in on that. I think.
Absolutely. They're making RoboCop.
Shamelessly.
Yeah, completely. I
Yeah.
mean, I think personally they're hoping kids are going to see RoboCop in a trailer and go, it's like Iron Man.
Yeah.
Let's go and watch this. And that's the reason they've done it.
Yeah.
And it's the wrong demographic. RoboCop was never made for kids.
Yeah,
That-
absolutely. It was an 18, which is,
Oh.
you know, comes on with the PG-13 and 18 thing, which I guess we'll cover
Yeah, the
later on. We'll
R-rated
talk about the
American
overall sort of feeling of the film. But I just, you know, going back to cast again, you know, we've mentioned Michael Keaton and Gary Oldman, but everybody else in the cast, they seem to be. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere, but excuse me, but for a film that's so iconic in its name only at the moment, they haven't really picked. I mean, they've got the Gary Oldmans and your Samuel L. Jacksons, but for your key characters, it kind of almost seems to me like they're trying to use this film, riding on the success of Samuel L. Jackson and all the others, using those high-end, maybe B-list celebrities to springboard some of the lower-level cast members
Perhaps they
into
should have cast
into
better
fame.
then. And if you think about it, perhaps they should have casted a name for RoboCop.
I mean, there's a tradition to do that, and sometimes you can sneer at it. I mean, but in other times it makes good sense to do that. I suspect it's budget limitations that have stopped them from doing that. But we've talked about Joel Kinnaman. You know, Abby Cornish is playing his wife. I haven't watched any films where I've instantly thought,
I don't know.
Abby Cornish, there's
No,
a name.
I-
I've never. Who is she? Do we know?
Not really. I mean, I don't know much about her other than the fact that she looks quite pretty. But other than that,
well, she looks reasonable, but I mean,
I think she looks drawn down in that trailer because of what's just happened. Which is
thankfully, they've not picked that woman that was in Dark Knight, Batman: The Dark Knight, as Rachel. What I love about the Dark Knight, and it's got lots of faults. I mean, it's not my favourite Batman film. My favourite Batman film out of those three, in that trilogy, is Dark Knight Rises. Batman Begins is great. The Dark Knight, too long, lots of other issues with it.
Oh, I love The Dark Knight.
Maggie Gyllenhaal, the one thing that made me laugh out loud when I saw that film at the cinema is the line that Heath Ledger says as the Joker. When she steps forward and says that, nobody knows where Bruce Wayne is. And he says, "Well, hello, beautiful." And I was thinking, should have gone to Specsavers, mate. Because if she's beautiful, then so is a pig with fucking lipstick on.
There's some sexy pigs out there.
Yeah, there are, yeah. Slightly more favourable to her, I think. So, thankfully they didn't pick her. They've picked somebody that's reasonably attractive. But I think they've picked somebody that looks more homely, if you know what I mean.
I think that might be the reason.
Because they don't want a super heroine. They want a woman at home waiting for her husband.
Yeah, I mean, I happen to think that Abby in this is going to be the emotional anchor for the film.
It showed a bit with her taking her top off, so there's hope there that maybe her talents lie in other directions.
Who may be.
And maybe, of course, she's going to be using this robo knob that we've talked about.
I would love to see some titties in this, but PG-13 is not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
So, I don't get excited for that. It won't happen. But I do think she'll be the emotional anchor for the film. Because, let's face it, Murphy looks like he's just going to go off and do his thing. It looks like he tries to distance himself from his family. Maybe there is a little bit in there, ashamed of what's happened to him, perhaps.
You may think maybe the essence of this story, as opposed to Alex Murphy in the original film trying to regain his humanity, maybe it's a case of, and that was his battle in the first film, was regaining his humanity and putting the pieces back together. Literally in some circumstances, but maybe with this film, perhaps the story is going to be more around that he's already got his humanity, but he's fighting against what they put in him, and he's going to be battling against this kind of robotic side, this kind of cold side, and something's going to snap, and he's going to go
gone the other way. Then maybe they're doing this in the opposite direction. Perhaps he begins to lose his humanity as the film goes on, instead of regaining it. So he starts off.
Yeah, it would certainly look like that with him giving him the black suit, and it looks more menacing than a hero type outfit.
So I would think they're probably going to go the other way. Perhaps they've just turned it on his head. He begins to lose his humanity instead of gaining it like he did in the first film.
And then something happens that maybe meeting his son or something,
and it snaps him back. That's another thing. I mean,
I like the idea of that. I do like the idea of him losing. Again, we talked about a descent. So we talked about a fall from grace, and maybe that's the idea, is that he's going to start to do things that are questionable.
He gets darker and darker, and he gets colder as the film goes on.
Because that's a good point, because at the beginning on that trailer he's in his silver suit, and then later on he gets given his black suit, and maybe it's kind of like when he's in his silver suit he's got his humanity. What have you done to me? I'm still a man, and all that sort of stuff.
He's reacting like
and maybe when he starts to become tactical, they're pushing him deeper into.
So he starts going in the other direction.
Yeah, I quite like that. If you're listening to this and you haven't done that, then you're a wanker, because you should do the descent story, because
it would work a lot better. If you're just hoping that people are going to go and ride off the back of this, it's not going to work.
Because that's kind of like a RoboCop into darkness kind of journey.
Absolutely,
and I think that would be really good.
I tell you what, I think you may have hit it on the head. That may be the storyline. It's not just the fact that there's a RoboCop. Maybe it's more about the fact that he gets put in this robot shit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then decide to knock him down in each hurdle, so he gets further and further away from the person he was.
That's a good. Yeah, I like that, and the fact that I think you need to talk to your son statement that we had in that trailer,
just a little trigger.
He's starting,
yeah.
But maybe she says that at the point where she realises that he's now moving away.
Yeah,
spending more time on his bike doing wheelies and shit rather than being at home eating, lasagna or whatever.
So that probably means, in a certain sense, then, that obviously in this film he probably doesn't go home. Then maybe he stays at Omnicorp and she comes to visit him, and maybe at some point in the film she says, "Do you want to see your son?" And he's like, "No, I don't want him to see."
Or he starts to fail to recognise his son.
maybe that's exactly what they're going to do. And it will be the annoying kid. I'm not saying he's annoying, we haven't seen him yet, but they normally are.
He will be, I guarantee.
You're probably right. They do get it right occasionally. Super 8, by the way, I thought the kids were fantastic.
Oh, they were amazing.
They were fantastic actors.
It's like the Goonies, you know, there are some really iconic films with kids in that absolutely are brilliant. E.T.'s another one with Elliot.
Absolutely, he's fantastic, that kid. Where is he now?
Leonardo DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Again, amazing.
Even the Basketball Diaries. I mean, he was only just hitting adulthood when that film came out. He is phenomenal in that film.
Yeah.
So, I think.
Yeah. So we're not kid bashing here. There are some really good child actors and actresses out there. What we're bashing is the cynical, almost what I would call Spielbergian approach to filmmaking.
Spielberg-esque.
Which is come up with a great idea and then fuck it by putting a kid in.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I love you, Dad. And all that sort of bollocks. No. But maybe in this film it's going to be, I love you, Dad, and you're going to think, Christ, and he's not recognising that. And maybe that would be really good.
You know what? If they do that, it may just be able to be saved a little bit.
I'd probably buy him a Twix or something if they'd done that. I wouldn't be.
Or Baby Ruth if you're from America.
Yeah, whatever. But I wouldn't be wanking over the fact they've done it. But it would be good to see.
Yeah, I think that could save certain elements. If they did that, at least then you've got a really interesting story.
I like losing his humanity because and that would really be a good mirror to the zeitgeist at the moment, which is the more technology we get and the more what we call interaction online that we do, the less human we become. And we are becoming less human. Society is breaking down in terms of our relationships with our neighbours and communities simply because of multimedia entertainment. Why not stay at home and sit in front of your TV or talk to a recording device and podcast or whatever, like we're doing, when there's people out there and it's cold, it's pissing it down outside, you can't be bothered, it's expensive, stay in, do what we're doing. But we're becoming, you and I are talking now and we're being human because we're having that interaction. But the people that listen to this, you should be fucking shamed because you should be talking to us in this room rather than using the technology. And I think if they do have this descent and he loses his humanity, that would be an amazing portrayal of modern society.
Absolutely, and let's face it, that's happening every day. I mean, how often do people text instead of actually ringing people?
Exactly.
People are lost in their phones.
And email is such a cop-out with the kind of
conversations. I'm like that myself.
Me too.
I text more than I actually speak to people.
Yeah.
So I think they've addressed that a little bit in this one, just like the original one.
Let's hope they have, and that they haven't gone the other way.
I certainly hope so.
Because if they go down the route of I'm a superhero, I'm RoboCop, then they're effectively just making another superhero film. But what I would really be angry about is if they do decide to go down a superhero route with RoboCop, and he's become a superhero. He already is a superhero, really. He's a classic, iconic comic book hero, But he has a look, and he has a defined look. Now, messing around and fucking about with RoboCop and his look, Batman has always looked like Batman. Yeah, there's variations on his suit, but he's always pretty much looked like Batman. They've never chopped his ears off and removed his cape.
No, not at all. I mean, obviously they did for Batman of the Future. They made the ears slightly shorter.
But they've done ears.
Areas.
There's still ears. But as ridiculous as they are, there are ears on his outfit. Superman, blue and red. Now, you wouldn't change Superman to pink and orange and well, it's a reimagining it. It's still Superman. It's fucking not. His blue and red is part of what makes him Superman.
And we'll talk about that Superman Returns at some point. I fucking hated the colours of that film.
Yeah.
I fucking despise them. They missed the trick with that film, but we'll get into that another day.
Yeah. But it's fucking around with the superhero's look that much, from going from silver, iconic, classic robot look to novelty black vibrator is a huge shift, and you effectively remove what defined that. Obviously the actor helped to define it, but the look also defines it, and to remove the look ruins it, I think.
I think you're right. It's not just that either. I mean, if you actually look at the suit itself, earlier in that trailer they show different versions of what he finally becomes.
Yeah.
There's a silver suit there where he says, "What the hell did you do to me?" That to me screamed RoboCop.
Yeah.
Apart from his human fucking hand, which we'll get onto at some point, he's blowing off. I'm sorry.
That bit where he said about before he said make him tactical on that screen,
There
was a rotating 3-dimensional model. That was RoboCop.
Absolutely, and they kept the look, and that look worked. If they kept that suit, I don't think I'd complain so much about it.
No, me neither.
Yeah. But the fact they took away what made him look like a robot.
Yeah.
Now it just looks like a fucking rubber suit.
Yeah.
You know, it ruins everything. I mean, as soon as you make it a guy look like, I don't know if you guys have seen. It's another RoboCop series. It was called Prime Directives. It starred an actor named Paige Fletcher, who was 5'8". I call him Robo Hobbit because he's far too fucking short. He looks buried in that suit. The man didn't even bother to actually look at Peter Weller's movements or how RoboCop was meant to move. So he basically swings his fucking arms when he walks, and it looks stupid. Now, because of that, you are instantly taken out of him being a robot. Robo Hobbit ruined it for me.
You see, a robot, you know, if it's a police officer, which is what RoboCop is, it's controlled. You know, a robot will only ever do something that you program it to do or allow it to do physically. So why would you design a robot that when it walks it flings its arms up and down like it's goose stepping?
Exactly.
You know, you wouldn't design a robot to be ungainly like that, because it will knock things over. It might knock itself out. Its arm might fall off. Ridiculous.
I remember reading something afterwards. I think I did read it afterwards. And Pages and director Julian Grant, which by the way, you fucked those films. Not you, Paige. I actually thought your acting was generally quite good.
Fucked it with a massive industrial-sized strap-on with a chainsaw attachment.
Oh, he did. Paige Fletcher, I'm sorry. I actually think your Alex Murphy, and I actually think your RoboCop was actually good. I love the way you spoke. It was very direct, but your movement sucked. But we go back to this over here. You've got Rubber Suit Man, because I'm sorry, you're Rubber Suit Man. You ain't fucking RoboCop.
Nah.
You've got
Shampoo dispenser man.
Yes, yeah, why not? You've got fucking Robo Hobbit. You're not fucking RoboCop. Even Robert John Burke, who I'm sorry, you were awful, but at least you attempted to move like RoboCop, and you did still do the snappy movements. And
you looked like him.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That kind of helped.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm sorry. I just feel it's fucked. It's fucked. There's no way I will watch this film and think RoboCop. I'm going to have to look at it as something else. Yeah, I can't look at it as RoboCop. Because it's not. I mean, if we go on to storyline and action, yeah, I absolutely believe this film is going to be full of action. And
it's kind of more like Robo SWAT.
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. And that's the thing that detracts from it.
Robo SWAT. He's more like a SWAT team person.
Well, maybe that's what
Robo
it's used
Ninja.
for.
He's kind of like a ninja.
Actually, at the start of this film, you know, when he first gets made into RoboCop, do you know how they test him? They send him into Iraq or Afghanistan.
Okay.
Because that's where Ed 209 is, and they're used to deal with these type of situations.
Urban pacification.
So urban pacification. So what they decide to do is they say, let's drop RoboCop in and see what it does, because they're not exactly sure how he's going to react to
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that's why we've got that version of the suit. Apparently there's like 2 or 3 versions of the suit before you arrive at the shittest version of it.
Well, you know what they're going to do, don't you? Because one of those versions is going to be a nod to the original in the same way that they nodded to Bubo, the owl, in fucking Clash of the Titans.
Absolutely.
And said, leave that here and chuck it back in the skip.
Precisely. You know? So that's more than likely they're going to do, but in all honesty, they've just chucked away probably the best version of the fucking
Exactly.
suit.
That's the thing. They've thrown the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes.
Then chucked the bath in a skip and demolished the house.
Jose, if you're listening to this, you actually put this in the script, or your writer did. You actually say at one point, I believe it says, you have a focus group. And they actually, in the film, there's a focus group who look at different versions of RoboCop. I don't know if you've stripped this out, so you'll forgive me if this is wrong. There's a focus group where they put criminals in front of RoboCop, and you show them a 1987 version of the Robo suit, probably slightly updated, and they go and they laughed at it. Now, I'm sorry, that suit looked menacing. RoboCop looked menacing. The fact that he has that stepping sound, you heard that coming down the fucking street, you're shit it.
Yeah.
And then you decided to put him in a black rubber fucking condom, walking down the fucking street, swinging his fucking... What? Are you honestly telling me that this focus group sat there and looked at that RoboCop, that looks fucking less imposing to me than a fucking flower.
Do you remember it? I don't know if you're old enough, but do you remember a game for a computer called the computer was a Commodore Amiga, and there was a game in that which was sponsored by the sweet company Chupa Chups for lollies.
Right.
And the game was called Zool, Z-O-O-L, with a ninja ant.
I do remember.
RoboCop looks like fucking Zool.
I think you might. You know what? I think you fucking nailed it, James.
So, you wanker, you've made RoboCop look like an ant from the 1980s. I mean, that sucked on lollies.
Oh my god!
It's just
fucked it. They fucked it.
It's totally fucked. So I think we probably covered the suit and the cast in there quite well.
Kind of discussed the storyline as well. We're jumping into it. I don't know.
Yeah, we did actually. I think probably what we haven't discussed really in terms of storyline. We've talked about where we think it's going to go.
I've got one.
But
who's the fucking bad guy?
yeah, that is one of my questions. Is that there's no easy to define baddie.
Who's the fucking bad guy?
I suspect the baddie's going to be Omnicorp.
So maybe they're nodding at the fact, was it Omnicorp that blew him up? Evidently he's got some kind of revenge mission, or Alex Murphy's going on against something because his partner gets killed.
Yeah.
So there must be someone in there. Are we going to have a Clarence Boddicker-esque bad guy jump up?
Yeah, is Kurtwood Smith going to make a cameo?
Oh, I hope Peter Weller does, but I doubt it. I mean, I think Peter Weller would look to him for fuck off, shove it up your arse. But
yeah. Well, Kurtwood Smith couldn't make a cameo as Clarence Boddicker because Clarence Boddicker's dead, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that because obviously that's Sayonara RoboCop, and then he gets his data spike and sticks it in his neck and then kills him, which is amazing. And there won't be anything like that in this film because it's a PG-13. But some cameos would be really good, even if it's just lower level characters where, you know, what was his name, the black guy in that with an amazing laugh? Leon, was it? Not Leon.
I think it was Leon, pick him up, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Can you fly, Bobby? Oh yeah, that's something we need to cover as well. I didn't list this, but maybe when we talk about the original, we'll cover catchphrases and
that film's full of catchphrases.
It is. I'd buy that for $1 and that sort of stuff. So I think we'll cover that in a bit. But going back to the action and the storyline, I think the action is the thing that we really need to cover. Judging by the trailer, I'd say it's probably going to be hugely steeped in CGI. It looks like it's going to be very heavily CGI, which isn't. It's not always a bad thing, but I think in this film you need more humans in suits than you do CGI to make it look like it's a bastardisation.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't nod
human.
to the fact that he's not going to fight anybody who isn't a fucking robot.
Exactly. I want to see him fighting people like him and have that dilemma of the fact that he's actually fighting humans that don't want to do it, but they're being controlled like puppets. They can't stop
That'd be an interesting idea. Maybe they're going to move towards that for a sequel if they get a fucking sequel.
Or ultimately, it's going to be like iRobot, and Alex Murphy's going to lead these robots into salvation and give them some kind of life afterwards, and they're going to become humans.
Possible. I don't think they'll go in that direction, to be honest, James. I mean, looking at it, that the reason they probably put robots in is because you can get away with a lot more violence if you're just fighting a robot.
But as a PG-13, what violence are you going to get away with?
Well, even in this day and age, you can still say fuck in a PG-13.
Yeah. A PG-13 is probably similar to what used to be like maybe a 15 back in the 80s.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. I mean, if you look at the wonderfully brilliant series The Walking Dead.
Yeah, excellent.
Back in the day, 18 immediately.
Yes. Oh,
now
definitely.
It's in England we call it a 15.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm sure you probably R-rated in America because
it is R-rated.
Yeah, because their R's in America is R15.
Yeah.
But that shows how far we've come. So in a sense, PG-13 doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be violent. It just probably means to me.
But it's not going to be violent enough.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing.
That's my problem.
Yeah, I think you might be right, but I think that's also the reason he's fighting robots. I mean, you can up something. Even in the trailer, he snaps the neck of one of them.
Yes, he does. Yeah, but it's a robot, so you're not bothered.
You're not bothered. That's the point. You can kind of get away with certain higher levels of extreme violence.
I think it'll be all right to snap the neck of a robot,
Yeah.
but he would never snap the neck of an actual human being.
Exactly.
And
I think
they're
that
a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean they're dodging bits with this,
Yeah.
I think, and they certainly.
He's certainly not going to get his data spike out and ram it in the neck of the bad guy, is he?
Well,
It's just not going to happen.
If he has a data stick in this, he might ram it into his missus. I don't know. It'll be
Yeah.
one of those things, but it just there's something completely wrong.
It smells deeply.
It doesn't
crap.
feel right. I think the storyline looks like it's going to be. I said to someone earlier today, we were talking about this trailer, and it goes, I thought it looked great. That's what the guy said to me. I think A209 looks cool. And I said, what it looks like to me is that somebody wiped their ass on the script, and I said, here, go and make this.
Yes.
That's what I get from it.
Yeah,
so,
it was pretty much all mapped out from them in that one wipe, wasn't it?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So I don't think the action will save it. There are occasional films out there that get saved by brilliant action. I mean, for anybody who's seen Dread, it is a fucking phenomenal film made on such a small budget, and you knew exactly what you were getting just from the trailer.
Yeah.
You know, it's a brilliant film. I can't imagine many people out there disliking it. It nails it from tone to... It makes Sylvester Stallone look like he's getting fucked by Schwarzenegger, you know? So, with this one, I don't see that happening.
No.
I don't think they're going to deliver. Unless they do some of the ideas that me and James have been discussing.
I get the impression, with the storyline as well and the action, that there's going to be, and it's... I'm really sad to say it, but I know that it's going to happen. There's gonna be some hint about war, indiscriminate killing, and there'll also be an environmental.
So they're commenting on today's.
Oh, they'll
just like the original commented on Business America from the 80s.
There will be that. It'll be environmental or something to do with that. As we talked before about, the more technology we use, the less we become human, and I think that's probably the message, and the less we destroy our environment and all that sort of stuff. And I suspect there will be some of that thrown in there, which is so fucking boring. Action-wise, I think that bike chasers are going to be the ones.
Oh, there's certainly.
I think it's going to be bike chase rammed. I think it's going to be just a fucking robo bike chase film.
Oh, yeah. Rumour has it that he actually flies as well.
Oh, for Christ's sake!
Like fucking Iron Man. The rumour has it that he's got a battle mode and the suit changes. I hope that's not true.
Fuck me!
It's just rumour, but.
He had a jet. He had that fucking jetpack in
Robo 3.
In RoboCop 3, didn't he? Yeah.
He did, and it was fucking the stupidest idea.
So-
Allow me, scum. It's just
so gay. So gay. And I'm not saying, there are gay people in this world, and that's fine, but a film should never be gay. And this film is... This film
certainly
is,
not RoboCop.
is definitely
There's
lubed
no
up
hint
and ready.
of campness in a film like this.
So gay. I think that we're talking about the original film and catchphrases. I think this film is going to be very catchphrase empty.
Well, it looks the only one they're going to try and do is obviously Dead or Alive, You Come With Me, and I think the only reason they've done that is to connect it to the original.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I can't imagine him going thinking over Creep or Stay Out of Trouble, or he's certainly not going to shoot a bad guy in the balls like he does in the first one, because they're going to rape that poor woman.
That's an amazing scene. Madam, you have suffered an emotional shock. I will notify a rape crisis centre. It's classic,
brilliant,
isn't
because
it?
it shows how cold he is.
Yeah. So he's effectively a graphical user interface, isn't
Yes,
he?
he is a fucking PR stunt. That's
Yeah.
what he is.
Yeah.
The idea to bring people back round to the idea of having robots, cyborgs, or whatever it is.
Because what was their tagline for Omni Consumer Products? Was it something like building a brighter future or something? Wasn't it?
That was in the original. I think this one's called We've Got the Future Covered, I believe is what they say.
Yeah.
So...
Because it alludes to that in the first film where they talk about tactical stuff and bombs and stuff. There's a
Absolutely.
video, don't they?
That's
basically hooked up.
We are in the market on all the things that nobody said could make money. And that's basically what they're saying. So I doubt they'll go in that same direction. I doubt there's going to be a Dick Jones in this, to be totally honest with you.
There's going to be a few dicks, but I don't think there's going to be any Dick Jones.
Yeah, obviously us sitting down watching the film. But, I can't see where they're going to go with it. I can't see the action's not going to save it. I mean, if you think about it, did anybody see the Total Recall remake? There's parts in the trailer where it looks, I like that. I like that a little bit.
And then they used Colin Farrell.
Yeah, and it just didn't deliver. You
No,
know, the only thing that worked in that film is Kate Beckinsale, but only because I just.
Well, she works in every film, to be honest. Doesn't
she's
she?
fucking brilliant.
Yeah, obviously with the less clothes, the better.
Oh no! Put her in that vinyl catsuit.
Oh, from Underworld.
I will work with that any day of the week, you know, and it's wiped down, you know. So
yeah, it is. That's tactical, isn't
yeah,
it?
so you see, I thought ahead.
Yeah.
But the storyline and action. Oh, I don't know where they're going to go with it.
No.
I hope they go with the ideas that me and James were just thinking about. Or at least that's the impressions we're kind of getting from it. But
I think the bike, the problem with the bike that I have, as I've mentioned it before, it looks too much like Street Hawk. There's too much 1980s stuff going on there. And I've said before, 1980s stuff isn't always bad. You know, RoboCop's a 1980s film. But the problem is that this is supposed to be a 21st century bike. And they've developed something that looks like something that was designed in 1982 or 1983.
yeah, or also some guy, some kid sitting in his chair drawing. To be honest, look,
Yeah.
Dad, what I've done. I've drawn a bike. I mean, it doesn't look menacing either. I mean, I would imagine that the idea of, you see, the thing is, when RoboCop shows up, there should be an element of, oh fuck.
Yeah. I mean, I get that feeling when you see the Dark Knight Rises. That first bit when he decides to come back and all the lights go out.
Oh,
and
fantastic! Absolutely,
past the car and he goes, "Strap yourself in. You're in for a great night or something."
Absolutely,
That's what you want. You think he's back, he's here, and you want something that's gonna.
Perhaps that was one of the ideas behind this. They saw the Dark Knight Rises with that bike, and then just suddenly decided, let's stick RoboCop on one as well.
Maybe so.
I mean, but it also alludes the fact there's that.
If you can fly, why have a bike though? That's the question.
Well, like I said, it was a rumour. They've probably stripped it out of the script, I would imagine.
If you haven't, then I would recommend that you do it now and quickly. Because it's
personally,
stupid.
go back to the car, the Ford Taurus. Back in the day, there was always that.
That car, the cruiser, the police cruiser.
Yeah, I mean, there was always that cool shot, which you've now taken away from it, of the foot coming out of the car, and it was always loud and a bang. You know what I mean?
That big thud as he stepped on.
Yeah, and straight away, you know, it's oh shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And you haven't got that with the bike.
No.
And, you know, I'm sorry. You know, many of you have probably seen RoboCop 2 when the car gets blown up and he steps out. It's a cool shot.
Yeah, it's an amazing bit that is when he gets out of the car that's been...
it's been blown to fuck and he steps out of the car.
It reminds me of that iconic moment in the Terminator where it rises up out of the flames from that.
Absolutely.
It's very much like that.
The phoenix from the flames.
Yeah,
so
and that's what you want, isn't it?
You
He's
know,
indestructible. He comes out of it.
Throw anything you want at him, you're fucked.
Yeah.
And that's what's so good about that. Peace, officer.
Yeah.
Think it over, creep. And you know,
Yes.
and I tell you what I love about that shot in RoboCop 2. It gives the guy a choice.
Yes.
He draws his gun and he stands there. He doesn't start shooting straight away. He just looks at him.
Yeah.
And then it isn't until that guy reacts to start shooting him and thinks, all right, then fuck you. Bang, he shoots him. You know.
Well, it's like that bit, the bit when he shot that guy in the balls and he goes, "Your move, creep." And the other guy puts the gun down and goes, "Okay,
he's talking to that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He gives them a choice.
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of like thinking that he isn't going to have a choice in this one.
No.
At all, because you know it looks like they even train RoboCop. If you look at it, there's a scene where one of the actors who played Rorschach, I believe, from Watchmen, draws a gun and cocks it.
Oh,
then,
I know who you mean. Yeah.
And then RoboCop's leg looks like it snaps open and comes out, but he doesn't draw. So he must be training him. I mean, what?
Either that or it's just a scene where the guy pulls a gun on RoboCop and threatens him, and his leg opens and the guy sees his gun and thinks, "Oh shit."
I'm not too sure, because the actual reaction, he doesn't shoot at him. I mean,
Well, he's not threatened by him, is he? It's like, shoot me, do what you like.
Pretty much, yeah. So
it's like he's got his gun ready, so I can shoot you, pal. So come on, you know.
I
suppose it's that thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what I mean. So,
or maybe he's an Omnicorp person and he can't kill him, and his gun opens, and that's why he knows he's not threatened, because
that is a possible thing. I think they're training him. I actually think they put him through a training thing,
right?
You know, to learn all these new skills, which I hate, by the way.
The music's the next thing I want to discuss.
They fucking better not use the RoboCop score. Basil Polidoris' score for RoboCop, that that thumping.
What? You know how you're fucking talking, mate. Because Basil Polidorus has for years been one of my favourite film score composers. The work that he did on Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan the Barbarian, is tantamount to genius. And Basil Polidorus has got this industrial sound to his film scores, but he also has a lighter orchestral element to it as well, like being in a church, his kind of the love scene music and his dream sequence music, and when he walks into the house with what sounds like a musical box type music.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful music,
and that for me feels like a personal.
It's warm, isn't it?
It's personal to him.
It brings you the warmth of that memory, and
he
feel
separated them out perfectly.
Yeah.
He separated, right, every time I use this thumping piece of music, that's the robot.
Well, it's very driven, isn't it? It's purposeful and focused.
That to me, that's the robot.
Yeah.
When it goes, that's the human side.
Yeah.
And he's separated them beautifully. They're going to do this with this film?
The difference between digital and analog.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the on off, dum 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 dum, which makes you feel like a robot, and then the lilting, all the different subtle variations in between.
Are they going to do that with this film? I doubt it. I bet it's a generic score.
It'll be
generic with synthesized type.
I mean, you might as well just get fucking stock music out of a video editing software and use that, because no one's going to give a monkey's bollocks about that.
And that's the thing, you see, with films like this, you need to deliver. It's the score that will often make or break a film.
And it's only, in my experience, it's only high-end films that really get given iconic, memorable film scores these days.
You know, you mentioned one earlier on, and I do generally believe it's down to the score that made that film great. Tron Legacy.
Daft Punk
and
again, this new suit looks like Daft Punk.
It does, but that score, you know, who would have thought they would have delivered something like that? That Tron score is.
Well, they're amazing. I mean, they were perfect for the Tron score. But then again, you know, the original film score for Tron wasn't too shabby.
RoboCop score is also iconic. You can put that in front of somebody. You know, there's a scene in the original where he literally goes into a cocaine den.
Yes.
And you know, and the score plays along.
Is that the one where is that where Sal is?
Yeah.
And he's going back. The Dodgers are playing 2 nights and I'm missing.
That's it.
That one.
You know what I mean?
Blow this cocksucker, Frankie. Blow this cocksucker's head off. Or
guns.
Come on, Sal. Yeah, it's classic.
It's brilliant.
But the guy that plays Sal was awesome as well, wasn't he?
Fantastic. The score just plays along with everything in that scene. Even with the door going poof.
Yeah.
And you can hear the orchestra going poof.
Yeah, the crash.
And it booms up, and then you just give that beautiful symbol.
Yeah. Come quietly, or there will be trouble.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It's wicked, isn't it?
Do I think they'll do that with this? I doubt it. It wouldn't surprise me if they just didn't deliver another fucking metal sort of sound.
It'll be generic, or it'll just be full of 2013 sort of synth type stuff.
I tell you what, but it's full of fucking rap type songs. It wouldn't surprise me.
Or cheap budget Daft Punk. So kind of alluding to Daft Punk.
I just don't think it will deliver. I'm sorry. It's like watching. I brought it up before. Prime Directives. You know, they completely didn't use the score, and it was shit. And they used this stupid trumpet music.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever watched it. There's this trumpet music. You know.
And
it's stupid. But
so like a mariachi band.
It's Christ Almighty. If you stripped out that trumpet, believe it or not, the background music would have worked.
Yeah.
You didn't need the trumpet. It's the trumpet that ruined it.
That's ridiculous.
You know, and I think it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to do something similar with this. I think personally, I mean, there's like those films that just use songs from the time and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't do that for RoboCop.
See, this is one of my reservations that I've got, is that a lot of films these days tend to be instantly dateable. It's like TV programmes now, even the ones that are making programmes on historical figures like your Tudors and Robin Hood and all those sorts of things. Hairstyles stay 21st century.
Absolutely.
You know the little quiff that a lot of young lads have and stuff, and you've got a little bit of one, but like...
And not only that, how the fuck did they shave their heads?
Exactly, but they have these little quiffs. In 20, 30 years' time, maybe 10 years' time, when you watch those programmes back, and the original, you know, Robin Hood series with Michael Praed and then later Jason Connery, their hairstyles were still 80s because of the mullets and stuff like that.
But the question is, would they have mullets back then? I mean, it wouldn't have been as coiffed and as clean cut, but...
The thing is, even costume these days is instantly dateable. You can tell that something's been made for The Only Way is Essex type Hollyoaks loving audience, where it's effectively Hollyoaks only set in the past. But you know what I'm saying, don't you? It's like, and I think this film is going to suffer from that, because I think that you're going to look back on a film like this, even in 2 years' time, 3 years' time tops, and you're going to say, easily that's made in 2013 or 2014.
I don't think it was even made then. It was made last year. It got pushed back, didn't it?
But you're instantly going to date it.
Yeah,
you're going to instantly be able to tell what date it was.
I totally agree.
If you look at RoboCop the original, other than maybe
some of the women
one or
dressed up,
two characters,
the two models that go around this place,
bitches leave.
Very 80s.
Classic. Gee, Bobby, bye. You gonna call me?
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
But very 80s.
Yes.
You know, and the hairstyles very 80s.
Yeah, very much so.
Even Anne Lewis. But the good thing about her is that she stays in a tactical gear all the time in the film.
But another thing about RoboCop, the original series, to me, unless I'm completely mistaken, and you know, it's a while since I saw it, but I don't actually think it tells you what year it is. So you assume it's modern day. You assume it's now.
Absolutely, and they never even say the near future or anything
exactly.
like that. It allows you to make your own
of course it's dateable. It's an 80s film with an 80s... I mean, they're not making any excuses for it. This is happening now. This is on the streets of Detroit now.
The thing is, it worked, because we wouldn't have thought... You know, back then, RoboCop, the fact there was a robot walking around, and we know... A film like The Terminator, which was out in 1984, helped it a lot.
Yeah.
So, RoboCop's not dateable in that way, because no one in their wildest dreams, even in the 80s, would consider a robot walking around like that.
No.
You know, today, it's a lot different. You know, for some reason, in the last, say, 10 years or so, technology has fucking rushed forward.
Yeah. But RoboCop was the antithesis of Terminator. You know, he was the flip side. You know, you had a bad robot, good robot, and you had your bad robot in Terminator, and you had your good robot in RoboCop. And it was only T2 that basically turned bad robot into good robot. But RoboCop was the answer to the Terminator, which is why, you know, comic books like RoboCop versus Terminator are so popular. So I think. But you know, notwithstanding those sorts of clashes, I still think that this film is going to be too dateable, and it will sound 2014 or 2013 whenever they put the music on it. It will sound.
It depends what they do with it. I mean, if they give it a proper orchestral score, I don't think that will happen.
Well, that's why people like Basil Polidorus' film scores aren't dateable. They are classics, and when you listen to the music away from the film, you know the scene because you feel the scene through the music.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got too many favourite pieces of music. Obviously, everyone loves the thumping RoboCop score. I mean, I love the rock shot. That is just amazing.
Classic.
And the other one for me is when he's walking through the house.
Yeah.
That haunting music.
Oh, yeah, it's lovely.
It's absolutely amazing. And he just changes it up just slightly as he sees his kid.
And then it breaks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it goes back to him.
Yeah, he starts hearing that voice, he's getting upset.
Yeah, and it throws you back into RoboCop.
He suddenly becomes back to the cyborg because he's getting annoyed and stuff like that. But yeah, is this film going to have that? I fucking doubt it. In fact, I will shit myself if this delivers a good score.
It won't. It won't. We know now, Mr. Jose Padilla, or whatever your name is, director, we know that the film score that you put to this is not going to be one of those things that you can listen to in isolation and enjoy it as a work of art in its own right.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I haven't even heard who they've actually got to score this film.
No, it won't be your Randy. It won't be your Danny Elfmans and your James
Horner. It's not going to be
Horners.
Hans Zimmer, is it?
It's not, Hans Zimmer or James Horner. It won't be anybody like that. It'll just be some unknown.
Oh, it might be Brian Tyler. I mean, Brian Tyler's done some good damn scores. I must admit, you know, he did like the last Rambo. Admittingly, he used his Goldsmith score. But he adds his little bits in there that works really well. I mean, if he does do it with him, I can actually see maybe a possibility of a good score. But because the rights are obviously still with MGM, they may still use the RoboCop score. They may just update it slightly.
I don't think they will.
I mean, if they do get someone like Brian Tyler, good composer, don't get me wrong, he may decide to use the RoboCop score. Have you seen the film Predators?
Yes, I have, yes.
Now, It's not a fantastic film.
No, it's weird, isn't it? Just
But
set on
how
a separate
quickly-
planet.
It is, but how quickly do you start enjoying that film as soon as the Predator score kicks in? Right at the
Yeah,
start
well,
of
yeah,
the film?
definitely. Yeah, because you think here we go, don't you?
Brian Tyler.
It's like with the Batman theme in the Dark Knight films. As soon as the Batman music starts kicking in,
And
now you're
love
about to
Zimmer's
enjoy
score.
it.
Yeah, I mean, Zimmer's score is so brilliant for that film because the Batman score is literally 2 notes.
Yeah.
Dun, dun,
Yeah.
And straight away you're with Batman.
And whether it's the hard notes, the same notes, or the soft choral notes, you know that it's still Batman.
Exactly
But one's Bruce Wayne and one's Batman.
Oh, the Bruce Wayne score is the. You kind of
It's
hear
choral,
it's
isn't it?
Lovely. It's like a.
Like little. Yeah.
Oh, love it. Absolutely love it. I do happen to think that they will go with the score from the original RoboCop for this film. Just for the
They'll
fact,
modify it though.
yeah, I think just for the fact that they've got the
They'll
tie
probably
right.
do a bloody hip hop version.
Oh, I fucking hope not.
Can you imagine? You know, all the scratching and stuff
I don't
like
think
that.
they'll go that far, but-
RoboCop.
I mean, does IMDb even list anybody doing the music? I mean,
No, let's
I,
have a little
I'm
look.
not sure because I haven't heard about anybody actually scoring this.
Just
film.
have a quick look. We're just for the purpose of this recording, you can probably hear some clicks and stuff, and that'll be me just scrolling through here to see
It doesn't even mention anybody.
director, writers. I mean, to be honest, the music isn't that good unless they just use stock music, because the trailer music doesn't sound very good. You don't think, wow, that sounds like a great score.
Now that's the thing with a film that has been put back a year ago. I would have expected them to use the score, which means the film's complete. It's been complete for some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that little piece of music that we've heard already is part of the score.
Probably so. So that's not great then. It doesn't bode well, does it? So I think overall, you know, we've talked about the director anyway. I mean, the guy's 46 years of age, and I looked through some of the stuff that he's done. Like you said, Elite Squad is one of them. He's done a lot of TV documentaries. I think he's a Brazilian guy. There's a lot of stuff in Brazil. I think basically one word summarises that, which is shit. I'd say that he's not really setting the world alight for somebody who's 46. If you look at someone like Ridley Scott when he was 46, he had a back catalogue that would make you shit or go blind.
Not only that,
or both.
even Paul Verhoeven.
Paul Verhoeven's amazing. I mean, he's
he
done
had a hell of a
amazing
fucking
work.
couple of films behind him.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, Showgirls, even though it was a shit film, it's still got a lot of tits and flange in it. And so, you know, so that's a good thing. But Black Books is a great film. I mean, yeah, Paul Verhoeven's done loads of stuff. I mean, he did Total Recall, didn't he?
which he followed
Exactly.
RoboCop. was before that, and
He
then
did
followed it
Starship
with
Troopers.
which is another film which is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And the fact that he keeps that sensibility.
Did he
of
do
brilliance.
Basic Instinct as well?
You know what? I think he did.
I think he did.
I
I
think
could be
he
wrong,
did.
but I think he did. But he's done so many great things. But at the age of 46, this guy, Jose Padilla, should have done a lot more stuff where I look at it and go, wow, he's done that. That's a great safe pair of
So
hands.
really, this would be his first American big film.
Yeah,
Actually,
it
to be
sounds-
fair, it will be his biggest film
I
he's
mean,
done.
I want to see people like Alex Proyas directing stuff like this. You know, the guy that directed The Crow, he would have been good.
Did you actually, originally, you know, about, God, how long would it be? About 5 years ago, Darren Aronofsky
Oh, right, okay.
actually had an idea for a RoboCop film, and that almost went straight into
Ah.
production. So I'm wondering if this script has elements.
Yeah, could have. Who's the other director? Is it David Fincher?
I don't know if he
Or
was
is it
involved.
Peter Fincher? No, it's David
It's David
Fincher, isn't it?
I'm not
Isn't
sure
it?
he was involved.
He did Seven, didn't he? I think
He did,
David
yeah.
Fincher.
Then
Those are the sort of people that want to see gritty. I want to see gritty for RoboCop because that's what it's supposed to be.
And this feels too light.
It's
That's the
far
problem.
too clean.
Yeah, exactly.
mean,
Oh,
you've
where's
got-
the darkness of...
You've got stubble and stuff. I want to see people who aren't all clean shaven and aren't all perfectly coiffured,
And you know what?
they all look coiffured in these
That
things.
is the film. That was the thing that kind of separated the original out. The fact that Detroit felt like a fucking shithole.
He was wading through shitty cesspool and spunk, wasn't he? To
Yeah,
get
exactly. There were floating bits of toilet paper everywhere.
Oh, it was
It felt like a shithole, and he had to come and sort it out.
almost like he had to walk through like streets that were like riddled with dead rat shit, vomit, and used condoms.
Absolutely.
That was the old Detroit. That they said it was a cancer. It needs to feel like that, doesn't it?
Does that feel like that in that trailer? That thing feels like it's fucking scrubbed up every day. You know what I mean? There's no darkness to
It looks
that
like
at all.
he'd walked through a new fucking shopping mall in Birmingham that had just been recently cleaned.
Oh, really?
Didn't it?
Not like the Bullring, was it?
Yeah, it looked like that.
So, you know, it's rather too clean. I'm not a massive fan of that. I'm not exactly sure. Well, it certainly doesn't convey it in the trailer. What is RoboCop actually coming along to clean up? Because it doesn't look that dirty to me.
I mean, you said that maybe it's a road sweeper. Maybe that's the angle.
Maybe that's what the bottom of his legs do. They spin out and there's a
Maybe
little...
it's RoboCop.
Oh, we've got it wrong.
And
in
he's
the
a
first
road
place.
sweeper.
I'm sorry, viewers. We've listened to this wrong. It's obviously all wrong. He was just a road sweeper. But
Excuse me, I have to go. Somewhere there is a pavement pizza happening.
that might be spot on. It would surprise me.
Excuse me, there are bins that need emptying.
Who knows? Maybe his feet split out and there's brushes on the end and it's like spinning around as he walks.
It could be.
Yeah.
I think that would be quite a good... You know, that's an idea for the sequel, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. RoboCop 2, cleaning the pavements.
Or RoboCop and his son Bin Boy.
Oh, I like that. His head splits open and he
He's
starts
like
putting shit
a
in.
wheelie bin, like R2-D2, only he's a wheelie bin. That's a good. We'll do that, Jose. If you've heard that, if it doesn't work out on this one, then maybe you could do a bit of research as a road sweeper before you make that film. So
As long as they don't call it RoboCop Returns or anything like that. You know,
Christ,
oh,
yeah.
You know what I mean. We'll see. I don't personally think this will get a sequel, but
No, it won't.
It may be a surprise hit.
Yeah, but they can't call it RoboCop 2, can they?
No, they can't because then they've got to go back and pay that.
Yeah.
You know, obviously it'll have a new name. I'm sure that in the day and age we have now, a lot of films, they don't have to anymore, thanks to people like Christopher Nolan, who didn't take the same direction as every other person.
No,
saying,
tangential, wasn't it?
yeah,
He
it wasn't
decided to
Batman
make a
2
step change.
And, you know, even Tim Burton, I'll go back to Tim Burton. Tim Burton started this off where he stopped putting 2 and 3 behind it. Batman Returns. Batman
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah.
You know, so Tim Burton really started this, and then people started ignoring it, and it went back to 2, 3.
Yeah, then Batman Begins.
Yeah,
Batman
Batman
the
Begins.
Dark Knight Rises. You know.
You know, even with Man of Steel, if you didn't realise that was a Superman film without watching it, you wouldn't have thought, Man of Steel, who's that?
I mean, you'd have to have been on a different planet. But if you're a little kid and you weren't aware of Superman, because not everybody will be. But just looking at the logo of the new RoboCop,
It's smoothed out.
it does look very different. It also has connotations of, now I think it has connotations of Predators.
It's not far off. The more I think about it, I mean,
What does it
tried
look
to-
like to you? Because I'm sure there's a film that has a logo that is almost identical to that, and I'm sure
Can't
I'm
remember
sure
what
it might be
is.
Predators.
I mean, looking at it, they've obviously tried to at least kind of look the same look as the original. If you know, it's still got the square O and all that type of thing.
Yeah, but
but
the thing is, it looks very.
It looks like a smoothed out version of the original, you know?
But it also has that old-fashioned look. I'm looking at Predators on IMDb to see if I can find anything that's actually got the logo, and all I can find is looks like it's maybe
It was a
fan made or whatever.
No, that was a proper poster.
Was it a proper poster?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like that, but I'm sure I've seen something with a logo that's very similar to the RoboCop.
Updated.
Yeah,
2014.
maybe it's the new Total Recall film that looks like that logo.
That's possible. Wasn't it made by the same company with Sony involved?
I think it is. I think it is the new Total Recall logo that looks the same. So from a design perspective, it's very much of its time.
And they've probably had the same person designing this then.
Maybe so, you know, or they've just got a random font off the internet and just whacked it in and just put it through Photoshop, because I could knock something up like that in about 20 minutes. So
Funny enough,
less
though,
than
they
that.
had no reason to change it. They could have still kept the original.
Yeah, maybe the copyright issues. Maybe it's on a different,
I'm not too
different
sure.
franchise.
I'm not too sure because when it comes to remakes, they're already using every element that they can from the original. And plus, this is made by MGM, and they own the
Yeah,
rights.
that's true.
They could pretty much do what they want with RoboCop on the big screen.
Yeah, that is true.
Which is obviously showing with the shit they're producing.
They've
But
obviously just tried to do something slightly different. Although that logo might be Alien versus Predator, which was the one with the pyramid under the ice.
you've already said it, Alien versus Predator.
Yeah, so I think it might be that. It looks very much like that anyway. So I think we kind of covered overall what we think the film's going to be like.
Well, if you haven't got the impression after 2 hours and 20 minutes or so, you're really listening to the wrong thing, or you're just tuning out. Basically, shit is what I think.
Bollocks. Yeah, I mean, I made some bullet points of what I thought overall, and I put cheap cash in on a much-loved franchise, another stain to add to the already vomit-spattered carpet of remakes and prequels and reimaginings. Doubt there'll be a sequel. I suspect it's going to be a box office flop. It should have been straight to DVD. Whoever greenlit this needs a kick in. Buy it on DVD or Blu-ray if you need a door wedge, because it's going to be fucking cheaper than a door wedge.
And not only that, you don't even need it as a door wedge. You can use it as a fucking something to sit your mug on. You know, why not?
As a coaster. And I think the last thing I said about it was I'd rather watch someone playing the RoboCop game on a Sinclair Spectrum than watch this new film.
Oh, to be fair, I was a big fan of that original RoboCop.
Fucking brilliant.
No, it was awesome, you know.
Yeah, so we'll probably, when you're watching this video, there'll be a little clip of that Spectrum game, and when you have watched the film, go back to the Spectrum game, and you will find that we're right and that it is better than this film. Moving on to the original film, and we've talked about lots of other things as a matter of course of talking about cast and storyline and comparisons between the action and the suit, etc., and the acting skills or lack of them. But what do we think about the original in terms of some of the sort of key areas of that film? I mean, from a design, my personal idea is from a design point of view, it had that consistency. Everything looked right, everything sat right. Looking at the trailer of this new film, it's kind of like they've got a man in a suit, then they've also got some robots which look a bit like him, only a bit more like the original RoboCop that he's fighting and killing. And then they showed you a flash of something that looked very much like one of those robots out of the Phantom Menace, with a longer face with a slit across it, that looked more like one of the modern Cylons. Do you remember the modern Cylons from the Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not the old series, because that was wicked, but the new series. It has that kind of look, and also a bit like Grievous, Darth Grievous, or whatever his name was, General Grievous. General Grievous.
Yeah, there's a slight.
There's an element of that. Now, to me, those designs they're almost like speaking in three different languages, because you've got man-machine. You've then got Total Machine that alludes to the original version. And then you've got futuristic / science fiction, another galaxy, far, far away type style. Away from kind of modern human style, more into this fantasy sci-fi as opposed to real world sci-fi, which is what this film is supposed to be about. But I think the 80s version had that cohesion, whereas I think this film is kind of fighting against itself.
I think it is. In all honesty, with the original film, it wasn't just connected, it was grounded.
Yeah.
Everything was grounded in what was going on around you, other than the fact that, you've got Ed 209. The only two fantastical elements in those two films, or the original films, was RoboCop and the fact there was another big robot, Ed 209 or Kane. They were the fantastical elements. Everything else sat in reality. Which means, in a sense, you could turn on the TV tomorrow and, I don't know, some big company unveils RoboCop. And you'd sit there and go, oh, all right, I can't believe they're doing this.
Yeah.
With the new film, you've got to swallow a lot of shit, I think, before you get to that.
Yeah.
There's robots running around. They're doing this. I mean, James has already mentioned it. We have drones. Fair enough. But those drones are still controlled by us.
Yes.
They're not...
Yeah, they are dumb to a certain extent, aren't they?
Exactly that. So, I think the biggest problem with this is that shoving too much shit down your throat before you even get to having RoboCop. If they'd said along the lines of that these other robots were their versions of the Ed 209 and they were flopping everywhere. And let's face it, what was the best thing? Dick Jones says, I had spare parts for 20 years. Who cares if it works or not?
Yeah.
Which is a very corporate-driven line, in my opinion. They're not going to deliver that with this. You've got to swallow the shit that this has already happened. We've got all these things, and now you're dropping in the new guy. No.
It doesn't sit right at all.
Compute with it at all. So when we go back to the original didn't ask you to swallow that much. It didn't shove it down your throat. There was this idea that Bob Morton had. He'd been working on it with his team for months on end, Didn't get an opening to go in.
That's right, because RoboCop was the prototype. It was basically the alternative option to Ed 209.
And when Ed 209 fucked up and killed that poor Mr. Kinney, getting blown away, you know, on the table, that was his opening to go in. This sounds like it was something they've been thinking about for some time.
Yeah.
You know, and it just runs in the wrong direction. Whereas the first one, the original, didn't do that. It was sort of curveball. We've got this idea, and he even calls it himself, Dick Jones, that bastard creation of yours.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like it's comparative with Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster.
He is the Frankenstein monster.
Yeah.
He is kind of a mash between Frankenstein and Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who's loved and then despised.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that happens in the original RoboCop because he's hailed as being the saviour, and then they basically get called in to shoot the shit out of him in that car park, and he has to escape.
And that is basically the crucifixion.
Yeah.
You know, he gets absolutely battered the shit out of. Something doesn't go their way, so they destroy it.
Yeah.
You know, and I love the line from Clarence himself. Your company built the fucking thing. Now I gotta deal with it. I haven't got time for this bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
It runs side by side and it's completely parallel. So, whereas the original delivered, because it didn't ask you to suspend disbelief, it didn't shove all this technology down your throat. They basically dropped in and said, I've got this idea, it's called RoboCop, what do you think?
Yeah.
And you take it straight away because they're not pushing technology down your throat like this new film looks like it's going to.
I think as well with the original film with it is that it's believable because in any large corporation they always have a plan B, and in this case with Omni Consumer Products in the 1980s version they didn't have a plan B until Bob Morton made that known to the old man played by Daniel O'Hurley fantastically well.
Who obviously had no idea.
He had the wool pulled over his eyes by Dick Jones because Dick Jones wanted to push ED 209. But RoboCop was the alternative, whereas in this new version it looks like they've already made tons of robots to be put on every street. So really RoboCop...
Which was ED 209.
Yeah.
He had it already built, he'd already sold it to the military, he's already made his fucking money off it.
Yeah.
And then for Bob Morton to come along and drop RoboCop on him, which basically makes ED 209, let's face it, from...
Well, it makes it obsolete, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it's digital and analog again.
Yeah.
You know, you've got... I'm sitting here with an iPhone. And somebody's sitting there with an old fucking Nokia that only plays a polyphonic ringtone.
Yeah.
RoboCop's the iPhone, Ed 209's the polyphonic ringtone. You know what I mean? The old Nokias. That's basically what it was.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I don't know. I generally don't understand what they're trying to convey with the new film, other than the fact they've taken the name RoboCop, stuck a fucking bin on his head or something like that, called it a helmet, with a red fucking Cylon slit from Battlestar Galactica, and said, RoboCop, and you're supposed to swallow it. No.
Yeah, ridiculous.
No. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised, and I think James already said it, that some younger people went to watch this film, and they will go back and watch the original and think, what the fuck did they do?
Yeah, they'll prefer the original, and that's a shame in the sense that when you make a remake, you always hope, hope beyond hope, that there will be...
They're hoping
there will be a remake that trumps the original, but this isn't going to do it.
I don't think it's just that either. I mean, if you're going to do a remake of any film, the reason they remake them in the first place is because it's got a built-in audience.
Yeah.
People who have seen the original RoboCop, like myself, I was telling James this story before we came on air. I was talking to about when I was a kid, my parents didn't really worry about sensitising me to anything that happened. Obviously, I couldn't watch porn or anything like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But when it comes to films, I remember my dad renting Predator.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the days when we used to have VHS.
Yeah, all these classics.
In England we had something called the Co-op, who had a video section. And my dad would rent that, and he would sit me down and watch these things. A lot of my childhood memories of watching very grown-up films with my dad, that obviously weren't full of sex or anything like that, but action-packed, adult 80s
male
films.
bonding films.
Absolutely. So I remember this one Saturday, I went with my parents. I couldn't have been older than 8 or 9. So this is like late 80s,
Yeah.
early 90s. More along the lines of the late 80s, I would say it was probably 89, something like that. And me and my brother got told we could select one video to buy and we could take that back. And the biggest memory I remember saying, off you go, pick what you want. And my brother picked up a film, an absolute classic, Short Circuit. Fucking love Johnny Five. I won't knock that film.
That's a great film.
And then I saw this picture of this silver man stepping out of a police car, and those very, very, very bold words, RoboCop, the future of law enforcement.
Yeah.
And it stood out. It was almost like it was fucking lights coming off it saying, buy me. And I did. I took this back. I want this. You know, which is kind of funny if you think about it. It was like a yin and yang. My brother had Short Circuit. It was very much the kiddie robot type
Yeah,
thing.
they're both
It was
robot
great.
films, but vastly
I mean,
different.
Vastly different. And me getting RoboCop. You know, so I remember that being probably one of the first films I ever owned. I mean, I actually got Knight Rider for Christmas, the pilot episode on video. I loved Knight Rider back in the day, you know, which I probably still have somewhere.
Yeah.
And then I think RoboCop was like the next film, and then Ghostbusters and things like that.
Yeah, all the classics.
So for me, RoboCop isn't just a film; it has a very, very strong bond to my childhood.
Yeah.
You know, just as Predator does.
Yeah, you've got an emotional attachment.
I have an emotional attachment to
Yeah.
this character. I still remember sitting down and watching it with my dad and my mum. My brother was I'm sorry, Andy, if you listen to this, you were a pussy when you were a kid. you didn't like... he liked RoboCop, don't get me wrong, but you would never sit down to watch Predator or anything like that. Or Jaws, for that matter. You know, so... sitting down and watching it with my family.
It's certainly not for the faint-hearted or sensitive child.
No, I mean, and let's face it, I didn't even realise there was an uncut version of RoboCop until the Criterion Collection came out.
Right, yeah.
And that film is vastly different. You're like, fucking hell, you actually see the back of his head get blown off and all that kind of stuff. So, for me, it's an emotional attachment, RoboCop. It's something I will always love. And then to hear that they make a remake, I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody, I really had high hopes for this film.
Yeah.
I love RoboCop. I was championing the fact they're going to do a remake until I saw a picture of that suit.
Ridiculous! It just destroys it.
It destroyed it right away.
It's everything's all destroyed in one.
It's the suit.
One
that did
stupid
it.
decision.
I just said, if you watch it early in the trailer, it has a suit there that looks very much like the original, and it works.
Yeah.
I would have accepted RoboCop straight then if you just left that in there. If I didn't know ahead of time that he had this stupid fucking rubber condom on, you know, it would have worked.
I just think that what's happened here is that they've fallen into the one of the easiest mistakes to make with any remake or reimagining is that they're trying to be different from the original, and in doing so they've detracted so much from the original. It's become a completely different film. But the fact that it's called RoboCop is just the name.
I think you're right.
And the characters' names.
Yeah, and the fact you've got Alex Murphy.
Yeah.
So it sounds like to me the only real names they've probably kept is Alex Murphy. And Alex Murphy.
Lewis.
Yeah, Lewis, who's
is
a
a
male
bloke
this time.
Yeah.
You know,
I suspect it's because they've kept his wife. Because if you think about it, in the original film,
the only female
Lewis
character.
is his only female sort of...
She's only really female character.
There are other characters, but they're normally
but they don't
victims
stand
or
out,
prostitutes
do they?
or whatever.
Exactly. You know.
Whereas Anne Lewis is like it's like she's his witness in the world. She's the one that understands him. She's like his surrogate wife
Absolutely.
or his surrogate daughter.
And the fact that she's the only person that recognised him as Murphy.
Yeah.
And she actually helps jog his memory.
Yes,
I think she is actually the beginning, even though he started to have these dreams and all that sort of stuff.
Her saying Murphy, it's you, certainly features as a recollection within his memory.
I
So
think that's the
it
chain
means
reaction.
that it's important enough for him to record it.
That is the chain reaction. He's frightened.
Yeah.
He backs off.
Well, he's confused. His programming confuses him because it's probably a statement that his brain wasn't programmed to
respond
to respond to. Yeah, being question and answer is fine, but a statement that questions his being is not something that they would have thought about, because they would have assumed that no one would have known who he was.
The original RoboCop, it wasn't just an action film. It had so many fucking layers.
Oh, hugely! It's like an onion movie,
absolutely.
It
It's just have every little bit of layer, and it questions everything that's going on around it.
And
which I think is the absolute. I think that's Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah, the beauty of RoboCop and any other film that has layers is you can, from start to finish, it's like having 20 different musical tracks that make up one song. If you isolate any track, even if it's just the beat or the percussion or the guitar, You can listen to that in its own right. It's an ensemble piece with those layers, but you can start watching that film from any perspective of any of the characters and take that journey right the way through to the end. This sort of film, the 2014 version, will be very monosyllabic, in the sense that it's kind of like a formulaic bubblegum kind of chew it once the flavour's gone, bored, next please.
I think that's spot on.
It won't be layered, and if you watch RoboCop the original from the perspective of Anne Lewis, you can follow her story. You can follow Alex Murphy, obviously, because he's the main protagonist. But you can also follow Clarence Bodica. You can look at Sal and see what he's doing. You can look at Leon. You can look at all the different characters and follow them. Even the police chief that's in the police station. You can follow it from his perspective. The unions. You can look at the media guys from Media Break. Casey Wong and what was her name? The other girl, the girl that was there with him, Jess Perkins.
Yes.
Casey Wong and Jess
My memory
Perkins.
fails me then.
You know, you can look at the adverts. Newcomb. You know, no more military aid. Pakistan's invading my border. You know, these things, which is what Paul Verhoeven does, is he creates the universe and then puts you inside it and immerses you in it, in the same way that he did with Starship Troopers with the adverts for Become a Trooper and all that sort of stuff. He shows you the context that you are observing that story in, so you become immersed in it and then you understand it because it tells you the context. This sort of film will set the scene in the first 30 seconds, and that scene will be carried all the way through for the next hour and a half to 2 hours, right the way to the end.
I think.
It won't give you that immersive universe. It'll show you a few clips like a trailer. They've done this. Omnicorp are bad. There's shit on the streets. We need a robot. We're bombing people. People don't like robots. Off you go then. And that's what it'll be.
I think you might be spot on with it. I think you're correct, if I'm openly honest. I mean, I'd normally argue against something like that, but I think you're right. I can't think of anything else to think of with this new RoboCop film, other than the fact that it's been created for such a younger audience that won't understand the overtones of probably what the first RoboCop original film did. It's been dumbed down.
Yeah,
and that's what it feels like to me. It feels like a dumbed down RoboCop. And that's where I think they're wrong. I mean, if you look at, we've already mentioned The Dark Knight. That is a very, very grown-up superhero film.
It is, yeah.
You know,
especially the handycam footage of the torturing of the guy that pretends to be
absolutely.
Batman that's been captured by the Joker, and he's saying, "Who are you?"
Spot on. But that also tells me that the audience these days are not as thick as Hollywood likes to think.
No, they're not. Well, especially in the UK, they are a very sophisticated audience.
I think they are in America too.
Yeah, oh yeah, I think so. We watch things from a different angle.
Yeah,
in the
I
UK,
think so. I think
more cosmopolitan, I think, in the UK.
Yeah,
in that sense.
That's a better word. I think that with this film, they're going to treat them like idiots. They're going to ram it all down your throat, and you don't need that.
It's going to be a bubblegum film.
Yeah.
It's going to be a feel-good film.
It's the only way I can think of it. It's a bubblegum film. It's a popcorn flick.
Yeah.
And I think when I do get round to watching this in February of next year, which I will go to watch it, as much as I'm slating it here, and I may even come out and enjoy it. I doubt it.
Yeah.
But I may like it a little bit. I may like the nostalgic feeling of that it's a RoboCop film.
Yeah.
I fucking doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it as well.
You know, I've been proven wrong before. I was one of the very vocal people that fucking hated Daniel Craig when he was first announced as James Bond.
Me too, now I think he's absolutely brilliant.
He is the best James Bond they've had.
Yes.
He's absolutely fucking amazing.
When he first came out, I saw him and I said, too old, blonde, too big and bulky, looks too much like Grant Mitchell out of EastEnders, too sort of SAS, and then he proved me completely wrong.
And that's what I like. I love to be proven wrong.
Because he's the modern Bond, and the modern Bond would be like that. He would be ex-SAS.
He would be ex-SAS,
and he would be bulky. He'd be a Marine. But he's also got the... Daniel Craig also carried that vulnerability, and I think
that is what sets him apart. It's the vulnerability.
And I think this is why Peter Weller did such a great job as Alex Murphy with the vulnerability side, because he can play vulnerable. He's not a big beefcake, Peter Weller. He wasn't. He was just an ordinary guy, not a heroic guy. This guy, I think it's kind of like you could have put him in a cape and called him Superman and he would have got away with it. You couldn't have done that with Peter Weller.
I don't
I think that's the difference.
I think maybe Batman more than Superman. You see, the thing about Superman is And there's a brilliant story from the guy who was cast as Man of Steel. That's told by Zack Snyder, the director of that Superman film. He says he must have tested hundreds of actors.
Right.
And they put them in a Christopher Reeve replica suit.
Mhm.
And they all stepped out and people would make comments and they would laugh. As you know, and it just looks like some guy in a Superman suit.
Yeah.
Henry Cavill, who was not in the shape he was at that we see him in the film,
Mhm.
which is obviously fucking Superman-esque size.
Yes.
When he stepped out in that suit, nobody laughed and the room went quiet. So certain people have a certain influence or a certain reaction to what they look like. Cavill steps out and you can see him in that suit. He looks fucking fantastic as Superman. You instantly buy him as Superman. And he steps out and he's Superman. You don't look at the Henry Cavill, the actor, anymore. Superman.
Right.
And I think that's probably the same sort of thing that you were talking about there with Kinnaman. He looks like, well, I can't describe it in a way that...
It's young metropolitan family,
I think,
isn't it? It's metrosexual. It's this kind of...
It wouldn't surprise me if they've cast him...
He could have been a stockbroker, you know, or a graphic designer or something.
I think he was cast because women probably find him attractive. They're trying to get a different demographic.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying Peter Weller isn't attractive.
They want a sexy RoboCop.
A sexy RoboCop. Admittedly, he's in the rubber condom suit, but... Women probably like his face, so they're obviously hoping that will bring that female demographic in to watch the film. Whereas back in the day, I don't think they felt like that. It wasn't like that.
Well, certainly not for... I mean, in the 80s, there was a trend for superheroes, which, you know, even if you're talking about Conan the Barbarian, not strictly a superhero, but still based in comic book origin, so still comic book hero. Terminator, anti-hero, but still iconic, and you know, character. All of the Rocky, all of these types of characters are always big, bulky guys. You know, they looked like barbarians. They looked like wrestlers. You know, they were big.
Yeah, that was
the
80s action heroes.
Pumping iron. You know.
It wasn't until Bruce Willis came along, I think, that kind of put an end to that.
In this day and age, they've gone the complete opposite. You know, when I talked about Hollyoaks, and I talked about The Only Way is Essex, and this kind of modern look, which is to go for boy next door look, more vulnerable, more clean cut. A marked move away from steroid addict.
Yeah, but you need certain characters to look like men. Not
Definitely.
boys.
Peter Weller was just an ordinary guy.
But he was a man.
But but he didn't look like Arnie. He didn't need to, because a suit was his bulk.
Absolutely. And it's also, I think the reason he worked so well was that gravitas in his voice.
Yeah,
He has
definitely.
that very dark, when he speaks to people, he has that conversational gravitas. You know, when I took on RoboCop, that kind of thing. It's very much deep. I mean, I don't know how much... If you look at a lot of shows these days, like Teen Wolf and all those kind of stuff, they're all boys.
Yeah.
All the heroes are boys.
Even though I love Grimm, the guy, the main character
he looks like Brandon Routh, Superman.
Yeah.
But every time I watch it, I think, why didn't they just cast Brandon Routh? At least he's imposing.
Yeah.
You know, he's a 6'3" actor. He looks like a little weedy boy.
He's great for the character as Nick, you know, in that. But they all look like that now. Excuse me.
You know what?
All the heroes tend to look like that now on TV.
They do, but they did tend to go in another direction.
Although, sorry to interrupt though, The Walking Dead, Andy Lincoln, is fantastic, and he's like you. He's a slim guy. He's seasoned. He's seen some life. He's seen some loss. He's seen some hardship. You know, he's got that kind of haunted sort of look to him.
Which is why he's perfect for the role.
And he's perfect for that role. If you'd have had a guy that looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger in that role, it would have been ridiculous. But they probably would have done that in 1980s.
Actually,
they probably would have had.
Right.
They probably would have had him played by Arnie.
You're right. If you think about it, they did it with Knight Rider with David Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
Tall, imposing man, and
Yeah.
he was a big, tall, imposing man.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
You know, I love the Hoff, by the way.
Yeah, he's classic. Yeah, but then again, Knight Rider, you know, the red flashing laser light going backwards and forwards at the front, again, very similar to what this has got. I mean, I even question, why does he need that red light? Is it infrared so he can see in the dark, or is it something else?
Maybe it's just to give the character a different look instead of just having a glass slit, I would imagine.
Yeah, but it's kind of... I don't really understand why they need it, because, you know, if you're talking with tactical, you want him to be black. If he's going to be
That's
working
it,
in
he's
the
going to
dark,
stand out a little bit.
you can
isn't
see
it?
this red slit moving about. You know where he is. That's where you're going to fire the bazooka. So, you know, there's no point. You know, it generates heat. Fire something heat-seeking at him, because a robot wouldn't generate heat unless if it's standing still or whatever with the servos. So, get rid of anything that generates heat and light. Let him disappear in the dark. You know, that's what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. To be fair, that's probably what ruins it a little bit more too. If you've got Michael Keaton's character turning around saying, let's make him SWAT and tactical and stuff like this.
But let's put a massive fucking red light on the front so everybody can see it.
You might as well just put a fucking spinning light on his head and shout, I'm the police.
Yeah, a blue light on the top of his
you
head.
know what I mean? Make it a woo, woo, woo as he comes out. You might
Yeah.
as well. I mean, the thing I always loved about the original RoboCop is he didn't need any of that.
No.
Because the thing
And his
about-
voice was the loudspeaker, wasn't it?
Yeah,
He
exactly.
would have that
And
kind of
before
sound.
then, you had that thumping walking noise.
Yeah.
And let's face it, and we said it earlier, you hear that, you're fucked.
Fucking boys online, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what I mean? You're fucked.
Yeah.
And then you've got this new version, which they've obviously tried to emulate it in some respect. It doesn't work, in my opinion, but they've tried to emulate it. They're falling short. I mean, I'm well aware that you need to, when you reboot things and you need to update it, there's a difference between update it and then totally ruining the fucking memory of a childhood.
Yeah, there is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to my rating on this, James.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to rate it minus 8 million.
8 million, is that all? I was going to go a lot further than that. And you know, but okay, if you want to do that, I will stick to minus 8 million plus 1. I think it is generally quite terrible. I've been watching this trailer since it came out. I've never been so more fucking disappointed. But to bring it back around so it just doesn't sound like two grumpy guys complaining, I hope I'm proved wrong.
Yeah, me too. And with that, I'll just say, stay out of trouble. I'm James.
I'm Adie, and we will catch you soon.
For our next grumpy guide. Well, we're not really sure what it's going to be next, but it'll probably be a remake comparison, won't it?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's plenty of films I want to have a go at. Superman Returns, for instance. I'm well aware Kevin Smith has gone on about that before, and he's right. But since when did Superman start fucking stalking people?
Yeah.
And floating outside of buildings?
Ridiculous.
Pathetic.
Yeah,
So,
maybe that's the next one, or Total Recall comparison.
oh, God, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So next time,
Okay, join us again. See you later.
bye-bye.
Bye.